talk about how the teams responded to that. Second item is the Fair Oaks courtyard. I think there was.
Before you go to the
Sure.
courtyard, because the facade, I felt
How about we let them get all the way, what we did last time, Elizabeth, they went all the way through comments and then we gave them feedback.
Okay,
Is that
but
okay?
on the notes, I think what didn't get in there was the thought and the notion of pushing the
Yes.
appendage back.
So that's number 2.
It's in there.
And that may not be so clear, Elizabeth.
Oh, it's not
But
at all.
Yeah,
Fair-
well, let's let them get all the way through and then
Okay.
we'll give them comments all at once, if
Okay.
that's okay.
So Fair
Option
Oaks
two.
is about the courtyard and really about shifting
This one?
that front elevation.
Now you'll see, the one she's just about to do, Fair Oaks courtyard, you'll see it. It's
Second.
next.
Okay.
So the idea that if we moved it back, there would be some way of making more interest. So that has been shifted in option 2. So we'll show that. There was
Doesn't look
general
any different.
comments about the
No, I
study
think
of
it's one
arched
just
windows.
Oh,
and
no,
you'll
there's one set of
see
windows.
in
One, two,
the
three.
different
Oh, I see.
options,
It just doesn't read like it's that
how
different.
the arched windows were integrated into the facades. We went through, I will say, we went through a number of iterations and chose the 2 that we thought worked very well. So if you had specific comments, it's not that we didn't look at it, but these we thought was a good balance between arched and non-arched. So that's the third item that we'll go through. The fourth one was a study of that clear story glazing at the very top portion of the City Hall. And we're going to show you the different lengths of glazing, and John will go through the differences between option 1 and option 2. So you can see how we've addressed this portion at the lobby. See, right? Okay, and then the entry arch, just the significance of that arch, some ideas about deeper arches to relate to the clarity of entry. So option 1 provides more depth, and option 2 increases the arch. So we looked at 2 different ways of achieving that item. Questions? Misunderstood? Did we capture that correctly in terms of
What is the clerestory on Fair Oaks lobby?
that?
The glass
Oh, you have it in front of you.
Story.
Oh, you mean the second floor?
Second floor.
Oh,
Okay.
it's the glass.
Above the entry.
Yeah, okay.
That area
Yeah.
right there.
The second floor, but not the clear story on the arches. Well, that is clear
Either.
So at the entry, that all the glass that would be above it.
Above here.
Above the door. No,
Oh, yeah, right there.
So quite
That's it,
honestly,
but that's the second floor, but
but
it's
it's
a
not, it's an
breezeway.
open.
It's an open area.
Yeah.
Okay.
so those are all the comments, but really it's a balance of solid to glass, arch to not arch, really making the entry clear, giving some detail to the other openings, giving some detail, and giving a little bit more breathing room, I suppose, at the
The
front.
comment that didn't make it up here that was really important last time that I'm not seeing was making the 2 halves of the building feel like they relate to one another. I thought that was
Yeah.
pretty soundly requested, that the left and the right, is that the last one? No, that's
Not quite
different.
as clearly as what you said,
Yeah,
Steve.
because we were super clear. In fact, I even followed up with staff in
Mhm.
writing about that.
Mhm.
That the left and the right of this
From the Fair Oaks facade.
Fair Oaks need to look like they belong together.
Oh, I see,
Yeah.
okay.
And that didn't happen.
The-
So we'll probably spend some time talking about that again today.
It didn't happen in what you saw? Or
I don't
didn't
see it,
happen-
it hasn't happened here.
Okay, so why don't we?
Yeah, I mean, you did something, but it's not quite, I think, where we were
Okay.
asking, yeah.
Why don't we, we'll make sure we go back around to that comment. The last 2 were about the chamber and the size of seats. So we have one at 80, one at 70, and there's some differences between antechamber and extra space. And then the flat roof at the police facility, which I think was unanimously approved, gives us some great opportunity and some cost saving, I think, even in the roof. So we'll show you how that's been developed in the site plan. So I think what we should do is go through the site plan and then look at the elevations and use this as a way of showing how we've met that criteria, keeping in mind what Steve talked about in terms of the Fair Oaks. Can you do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions just before we jump in?
So I have a comment from a resident who has emailed and wanted to make a comment about the Fair
Is it a conceptual one, or is it about the plans we're looking at today?
It's in reference to the plans.
I think we should wait and do that all at once. I think we should let them present the plans, and then, well, my plan is just to go around, they're gonna present, like, I think we should do what we did last time, which is present both, and then we'll go around the table, and each person can comment what they see, and that'd be a great time to include those comments, if that's okay. All right, thank you, great.
So we have option 1 and option 2 here in front of you. You can see the site plan seems to be kind of it's coalescing into one site plan. So really what we're looking at today are some tweaks primarily at the Fair Oaks facade and council chamber. And again, both council chambers right now being shown on the canted plan with reference then to the existing town hall. So I'm going to jump into option 1 here.
And it'd be really helpful to tell us how they differ, because it was a little hard to see when 1 and 2, yeah.
Sure, yeah, that's actually better.
Great.
Thank you. So maybe just starting with the council chamber on each option. You can see here this option 1 council chamber, not so dissimilar from what we looked at last time, but there were some good comments relative to the size of the chamber, how many bodies can we get in there, how many seats, and also how is the planning working? Are there ways we can make it a little more efficient? In particular about the vestibule and the portico, which seemed to be a nice space, something that was desirable, but at the same time, could it be made a little tighter? We'll look at some variations there between option 1 and 2. And then the chamber loggia and how large that is. Is it something that supports seating or something that's more of a standing room indoor outdoor type space? Additionally, there were some thoughts about how the back bar might work, and we'll show another variation there on option 2. So option 1 right now, this is an 80-seat council chamber. This is kind of, if you had to break it down in simplest terms, option 1 is going to be the slightly bigger council chamber, option 2 is slightly smaller. 80 seats on this one, 7 council member seats. This has the larger of the 2 loggias. This is a 15-foot width to allow for that potential for seating if you're having a flexible event in the space. Still open air on that loggia with basically open arch space and what could be sliders, or if we wanted to, you could look at an alternate as well of French doors. That was something we discussed last time as potentially cost saving. The portico entry here we're still showing as potentially an open air portico, which could be really nice, not so dissimilar from what we have now. Again, an option for this could be, Steve, I think you had mentioned this last go round, the idea of potentially closing that off to create an airlock. Could be glazed doors, could be, if it's covered and something that doesn't necessarily expose the elements, could be partially wood and glazing, which could be pretty nice. Overall, just criteria between option 1 in terms of site distance, access to parking, distance from the existing council chamber are relatively similar. They're about 90 feet apart from the existing town hall that we're in right now. It's about 100 feet if you're coming in from Ashfield, about 130 feet from Station Lane, and that's relatively consistent on both plans. One difference where they do vary has to do with, and this is slight again, but that distance from the water line is something we keep thinking about relative to how SFPUC and that whole process is going. Option 1 is about 11 feet, 10, 11 feet away from that water line. Option 2 will be about 15 feet. So relatively close overall. Then overall in the massing, you can see here then this would speak to kind of those open areas. That open portico on the front end. Again, the idea that that could be filled in with the door. And really trying to play in the idea of thickness and threshold at those key moments. So those are spots like right at the arched entry, and again at the loggia. Those are places where we can really play up the depth and get a sense of that kind of true older construction, kind of the idea of coming into the building. So then jumping from the council chamber on option 1 over to what would be the Civic Court and the Fair Oaks facade. Again, not so dissimilar from what we showed last time for previous option 1. You can see here now the integration of the flat roof at the PD. And again, a trellis, which would give us some good solar control on that south and west exposure for the upper story of the police. We're still infilling balconies here, so this would actually be that clerestory corridor lighting that could come in right across from the fitness, which could be a pretty great way to get light deeper into that floor plate. This was an element that seemed to get some pretty good response last time. It was the low roof terracotta that scales down that Civic Court. So we're still trying to pull that through, but we did pick up on some of those comments which thought that this might have been a little long in terms of how far it read. So we actually did reduce that by about a day on the Civic Court, sorry, the council chamber elevation. Still maintaining the 3-arched portico, which I think was working pretty well, again from a solar perspective and also from an entry demarcator for the facade. And then that admin building, this was a little bit blanker, which some felt was a pretty good relief. The program back behind here, to remind, this is actually the stair here. Then the corridors would be opened up at the end. Here's that exit access. And actually that 3rd arch would potentially be a conference room space. So you could imagine some glazing then back in here in your entry, aligned with the entry directly across So then on Fair Oaks, as we come across, you can see that main entry here, taking that same idea of a low roof, which seemed to be pretty good from a scaling device, and just bringing that over to the Fair Oaks courtyard. I actually feel like this was working pretty well, sort of break the facade up. Elizabeth, you had a pretty good comment about the massing of the admin building, right? So once we moved the council chamber, we started to program pretty heavily in stacking. It's a really efficient plan, but is it too much? Did it get too big? So in this option, what we did is actually, rather than push the building back, we said we're gonna have this come forward, and that'll help tune and scale the courtyard. You'll see the other option, which it's actually a little more subtle than I would have expected even. It's a 7-foot shift in the other. Steve, you had a pretty good comment too on the last go round about that upper story glazing. Is there a way we could get more for that and really brighten up that lobby a little bit? So this actually takes that from what was previously probably about 25 feet long, looks at taking it over to 32 feet. And that's in terms of the length of that upper story recessed glazing. There were some other ideas about articulation, texture, kind of trying to animate the ground plane of the facade and give something that speaks a little more to the Santa Barbara Spanish Mission style. So some of those items where we see some great opportunity, and this could also be donor opportunity too for the courtyard, are the idea of sort of recessed niches. This could be a really rich tile. Even today we were talking about the potential, we have the building next door here, the library, and as that's taken down, are there elements from that library that could be salvaged that might still speak to the facade of the existing building? So that could be a really great way to have key moments that kind of harken back to the history of the older buildings that are here. Potential for ironwork as well at the windows there. And again, some more, the entries kind of want to speak to depth, shadow, and thickness. And so the portico is a really great way to kind of allow us to do that. There were some concerns earlier too. I think Dee Dee, you were expressing a concern about the living wall. That's sort of a built wall with planting on it. Other thoughts were, well, we can do this in a way we know works because we've seen it all over. So is it actually really better to consider maybe bougainvillea or some planting there that could be seasonal? Give us a chance to really have a pop of color in that corner, but it's something that changes through the seasons and something that adapts as opposed to something that's on the building requiring that maintenance. So that's kind of a quick run through there of option 1. I'm going to jump now to option 2.
Just the entry is the 3 arches, right?
Yeah, 3 arched portico entry on this side. So just starting from I'll start back like I did before, council chamber. So again, the site plan relatively consistent. Flat roof on the police, relatively same distances. Here the key difference was just a little more room. This is that smaller version of council chamber. So it buys us about 4 feet, 5 feet from the water line. This is coming in roughly 15 feet. The size of the chamber here, we had heard previously, we've always been designing to 80 on this. That was kind of the number we settled it on. But last go round, the question came up, is it 80? Do we really know that? So I think one of the thoughts was, well, it'd be good to have council confirm exactly what they want. So we thought, well, let's take the chance to at least put some variation in there. We'll look at 70. So this is a council chamber that's seating 70 plus the 7 for the council. Further reductions, so we had that open air portico entry. One thought here was, well, is there a way that we can actually flip? Potentially it's restrooms, could even be some of the service function. In this study it's restrooms. You could come in and flanks, basically that infill program. Clive, this was one of the points you were bringing up. And it's still about creating thickness, threshold, and entry, but just kind of freeing up some of that program. Now, one of the nice things on option 1 that we've been doing is trying to hide all these doors, keep the council space a little more formal so that you don't have a bunch of utilitarian doors right off the side of it. So what we tried to do on option 2 was then just use some of that space then for vestibules to conceal those doors and give you side entrances into what would be the service spaces on the side. We still kept the chamber loggia, but we went from what was a 15-foot space down to a 10, 11-foot depth space inside that loggia. So this is probably more realistically a standing room flex space that would be indoor-outdoor, whereas the other one could feasibly set tables and serve as that outdoor seating space. Those are going to be the key differences there on the council chamber. You can see relatively the massing, not a huge impact. This one's proportionally going to be a little narrower, a little smaller overall, but in general, the 2 schemes are relatively similar. It's just a question of how the program's dispersed, efficiencies, and overall size. When it comes to Fair Oaks, we had a little bit more variety. So Elizabeth, the suggestion here pushing it back to kind of reduce that mass.
Mhm.
Keeps a flat facade here, that doesn't move, but we did shift this back 7 feet. So
Mhm.
that, they both relatively keep the courtyard roughly the same size. We threw a dimension here, so option 1's courtyard width from basically face of admin building to face of portico is about 22'4". The dimension here with the 7-foot shift to the flat police department wall here comes in about 23'10". So each of those schemes is reduced roughly 6 feet from where we were previously on that size of the courtyard.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question of clarification?
Sure.
I thought what we were talking about was taking that whole block and sliding it.
Yeah.
So,
This
no,
whole block.
not just cutting the front face off, but sliding the whole thing back so you weren't losing any square footage. So have you actually lost square footage?
No. So it's literally taking the mass.
So
Because
if
shifting
he's
the
saying
whole
that,
mass.
that's exactly what he's done,
Yeah.
but it's hard, it's
It's-
imperceptible to me, because it still looks big
'Cause
and
it-
bulky, like.
Because it
a
looks
package.
like the back line just continues straight through from where it aligns with the police department. That,
The roof plan isn't any different between the two, are they?
This chunk is shifted 7 feet.
it is, okay.
But
Okay.
no, you're correct though in one respect. I guess where it's being confusing is the fact that we still have that low roof. And so that the return of the low roof here is why it doesn't seem like it's making the shift. But yeah, what we've actually done is taken the digital model and shifted the whole mass that 7 feet. This low roof then also follows.
So the whole roof line would have moved. The
Yeah,
center
but
line of that
they
roof would have
didn't,
moved
they
too.
didn't change that,
Yeah,
that drawing.
Significantly enough.
Or it might just be that you don't notice it because the whole roof shifted. So the only place you'd notice that the flat portion of the roof got shorter.
No,
Yeah, I
that
think it's,
doesn't make
I mean,
sense.
what I'm gonna do is flip, just so we can compare the two, kind of in a visual perspective here. So this dimension to this dimension, that's the 23'4". That's for this low space here. This one to this one, that was, I believe, the 22'10", right?
And that's
23 to
23,
2210?
but
I wanna
it's,
make sure I'm not flipping it.
yeah,
here.
it's not, it's only a,
This is the
That's-
23.
It's 2
That's
inches.
That, yeah,
23'10".
2310 to,
And then this one, get my numbers right, 22'4". So
and
little-
how is that 6 feet different?
the 6 feet, so what's happening is we're actually,
Look at the windows on the
Using
upper.
Because of the low,
You can't look at the windows on the upper part, there's 3 here and 2 there.
no, I see that,
Oh,
but you're saying that it's to the face that's projected out, not to the second floor elevation.
we wanted to find a way to address the comment on both options. And so by keeping the portico here, the courtyard space is technically reduced, right? Here, the mass of the admin building, roof included,
It's shut
shifted.
back.
What happens on the other side then, in the courtyard?
The courtyard would lose that space.
In
the
courtyard.
but on the site plan, it doesn't show that.
Right.
On your site plan, it doesn't, I mean, I don't see it.
It's there.
It's there.
If you strike an alignment of the building, just look for reference, for instance, at the kiss and ride.
You know,
That's the
these are
second.
really tiny little things that I look at and I can't see, you know, even here,
And I can
but
draw
I mean,
here too.
for us to be able to look at things, Steve gets special treatment because he gets extra large ones printed out for him by.
No,
Thursday.
at my office, yeah, a lot
At
of
his
does it for
office.
me, yeah.
So we don't have that or whatever, but you know, it's,
But what architectural treatment, I guess, did you do when you pushed the admin section back? Did you have to do any adjustments within the courtyard so that it didn't stick out or
I don't
change the
know,
roof
just,
line?
The key adjustment would have to do with, we've been holding a planted edge along the police department just to keep some distance from the building. We don't want people up against those windows. So that would probably need to reduce in the option where the admin building shifts back. The path has to be a little reconfigured in that area. But mostly it's going to impact the way the buildings hit the ground and what's happening immediately at that space.
But it doesn't create a U.
it doesn't create a
No.
U.
No, because you're pushing into the courtyard.
You're pushing the whole building out.
This
But see, that doesn't,
is
You're not
what
just
we're
pushing
doing.
the admin, you're pushing the entryway.
Yeah.
The entire
lobby
building
area
back?
as well, right?
This chunk of the admin building
Uh-huh.
here, that's what was shifted. Now, we knew that this was a desired feature in the Civic Core, that low roof, so that came along with it.
I don't
It
get
moved,
it.
it moved about 6 feet.
If you
Yeah. It
move
moved a little
that
tiny
chunk
bit.
of the
You can see
building
it kind of come to the
and not
impacts.
the police
Here it comes
building,
to a little further.
that chunk
It's
would
hard
be-
to tell.
Yeah, it is.
offset, and it's not.
Well, like I was saying, so this low roof here, we maintain that relationship to the building. So we didn't get rid of the low covered portico entry. We kept that. We thought that was a desired feature. We shifted that, and then that just returned the one.
Can I bring this back on track? I think the issue that you were getting at the other day, Elizabeth, was you didn't like how deep it felt at the front door.
Yes.
And the question is, did it change, have you made a material reduction
Right.
in the depth from the front of the admin building to the front door? And the answer is no.
Not really.
It's about a foot different
No,
6 feet.
No, it
Seven,
is
six,
7
7
feet.
feet, 7 feet different.
from what it was last time?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
just
I-
that on the ground floor, both of those window lines, there's a big window in the sidewall and a small window. And on the other one, it's a big window and a side
Okay,
window.
but
They look exactly the same.
I
Well,
think what he's saying,
reflective
last time was it 30 feet to the door?
Yes.
Okay,
And so,
so
and now
the-
is it
between these two versions, they're nearly identical. Compared to last time, it's 7 feet more
Correct.
to the front door.
Okay,
Yes.
And where we were getting a little lost is there's a difference in the second floor elevation because it is pushed back on the left drawing. I think, I may be wrong on that point, but it's 7 feet back from where it was last time.
okay.
The these two options express it differently because the left one sets back the second
Okay.
story a little bit, which allows that third window up there.
So you're right, it's getting better because the big appendage, the big block massing appears to be smaller.
You cut it out about 25% of what
There's,
it was.
but, and you didn't, so she's showing us, is this last week's?
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
last week.
Yeah, you can see how much longer it is.
It is reduced. It may be not as reduced as you were hoping.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's a two-story building, so
Yeah.
it's gonna have presence.
So I've had some comments from a resident.
Can we wait,
Yes.
I know
think
you're
there's
really
some-
eager, I'll let you go
There's some
first.
little tweaks
I'll
that I
let you
think
go
would
first.
really,
Okay.
really make a
Elizabeth, you're
difference.
first, don't worry, you're gonna go first. But we're gonna let him get all the way
I'll be
through. You may
last.
be done,
No,
are
I
you
don't
about?
care.
We're very close.
You're very close, okay, we're
Almost
almost there.
Very close. So there were a couple things happening here in terms of texture. We spoke a little bit about the bougainvillea. Some really great things actually that I think, scaling down with the clay tile roof, they're working well.
Mhm.
And we wanted to bring some of that over here. So we had done several studies. A lot of them, you're gonna be glad we didn't show you. Some of them were very sparse and bland. And we realized that's what was missing. So we looked already previously at the idea of maybe some precast or stone that sits low. There were some really great comments last time too about scaling this space down. How do you get a texture in there that it feels like a place where you want to be, and you can learn something, you can see something that gives you a little more to kind of sit and occupy that space. So one thought here that could be really great. There's been some ideas about terracotta tile, literally kind of taking that ground plane here. And so if there's a way that we can kind of relate as well with clay tile or terracotta on that vertical surface as well, I think it could be a really great unifier and just let it speak as a plaza as a whole. In some ways, it actually scales up the plaza as well. It might give you a little more of a visual reading of that space. Integration here of shutters, and you'll actually see this on both schemes. We've looked at this in the past. I know initially we said wood might be a really great idea to warm up the building. Understand it's a maintenance concern, but we still think the shutter could be a really great device to use, especially on the lower story, where we want to be particularly sensitive to the size of the windows, recognizing that people are walking by, these are offices. So privacy is important, but also we need a device that lets the windows feel open and large and big. The shutters give us an opportunity to give that texture, that scale again low, but also give a visual view that the windows are a little bigger than they actually are. So that's one device there. Great opportunity there on the upper story again for those open windows. Comments that were always turning towards larger windows with kind of a subdivided sash. So that's something we kind of held on to in this scheme. Although the clerestory, or that second story window that's up above the arch, a little shorter on this option. Right? So we've actually not subdivided that. We've kept that. This is roughly the 25, 30 feet length, I believe. Previously on the other scheme, it's about 33 feet, roughly 32, 30. We're still looking at some articulation of the window plane, where you can kind of express the stair, even if it's in a flattened version, with a low window at the low landing, mid landing with some sort of projection of light, and a way that you could kind of connect with the outside on the way up, and then something that gives you good light up above. And I think this is actually the best way to get light into that space. The higher we go with the windows, the better light we're going to get. On this, the other option that we were using, and this speaks a little bit to what I was talking about, the blankness of that facade. We did think a small projection, even 2-3 feet, could do a lot for the facade. If this is all flat, it starts to read a little oppressive. That's a 2-story, pretty long length of the building. Simple is good, I get that, but we thought there may be some need here for some kind of small, something to just help define the facade a little more, and give a little more depth, and kind of help again to tune that space.
John,
We're
can you
seeing
remind everyone what the program is behind that? The
Yeah,
wall,
so this space right now, it's actually, there's a radio room and storage that are actually very closely connected with the dispatch. And dispatch needs to be as close as they can be to the reception. They're actually doing double duty in terms of program. So they, on the off-shift hours, the night hours, dispatch is actually serving both. So having that program is actually kind of important for that space. The space where we may have some flexibility, it's not the full space right here, but there is a portion of that that's electrical as well. Could be flipped, we could look at that and investigate that. But the radio room and the radio room storage, it is kind of important to have somewhere in that proximity. So that's something that, that's kind of what's right back behind there, and that would explain why there's kind of more blankness to that as well. Those
So,
aren't necessarily window.
So option 1 is a little bit more transparent through the lobby space
Yes.
than option 2. But option 2 has the more singular arch entry.
Exactly. And we looked at other studies as well that enlarge that arch, go taller with the arch. It did seem to kind of scale out pretty quickly. It seemed like it was almost $2,000 for a building of this size. Once you went above the 1.5 story height with it. Right now this is, I believe, about 13, 14 feet by about 12 feet wide, which is significantly wider than where we were before. I think we were about 8, 9 feet previously. So it's a wider arch. There were some great comments here too about depth, and I think that's good overall. We went with a little less on this option, but I still think we're talking about a range of probably 3 to 6 feet would be really excellent way to enter into the building and have a return on that entry. So just showing a little bit of variety between the two, but I think that's the sweet spot.
So do people have clarifying questions before we go to comments? I have a clarifying question. So on option 1, where you have 3 arches in the front and 3 arches in the back, they're offset, right? They don't line up, except that arch lines up with the southern, that's the northernmost arch, or what is that, north or south? That's the southernmost arch,
Yes.
which aligns with the northernmost arch in the back, right?
Exactly, and that would be your primary entrance. Then you wanted to
Okay.
That's important too.
Okay. I just
The
thought that
middle
worth
one
calling
is
out.
not the primary entrance?
No, it would be this one.
Well, it could be, but they're showing it as one where you would walk through and you would look straight ahead at the door that takes you at the back,
That's weird.
because they don't line up. I just think this is,
That's weird.
since we don't have a plan that shows this,
You know,
I think it's worth somehow making sure everybody gets.
thank you for clarifying that.
This is it's a significant architectural issue.
Yeah.
It's not, it's just one you have to decide how you feel about, but
Yeah.
they don't, it's like 3 arches are like this and 3 arches are like that.
No.
I think we could make them line up. but-
Well, you'd have to, it's gonna be, that's a trick, because you'd have to change the shape of the building to do it.
Well,
They
That's
do
okay.
currently line up,
One.
to line up the middle one, we'd have
In the middle
to
of the one.
reconsider
Right.
the way that the planning desk is currently working.
Right.
Okay, all right,
Impossible? Absolutely not.
okay.
Could be- could-
So in comments, I think you're gonna hear some comments about that, but any
I
other
have another
clarifying,
clarifying- I have-
yes, thank you, yes.
What is the plate height of the first floor? Yeah, that
The
plate,
material.
that plate.
The
height.
Slab to
floor to
slab,
floor.
yeah.
Floor. Uh-huh,
This is about, let's see, what was that? This is at 13.6, I believe,
13.6?
and then this floor we're looking at about 12. Now we max out at 34 feet is our buildable height.
13.6
Including
and,
the roof, or just
12.
to the,
That's to ridge line roof.
Yeah.
Ridge
It's
line.
34 feet overall.
okay, okay. All right,
Okay, I have it might be a clarifying question. I'm still unclear, when you offset this building by 7 feet, you didn't lose any function inside. There's nothing that was diminished, is that right? But even if you offset it, everything's still lined up inside?
The hallways
The
and stuff?
hallways and,
the rear courtyard would get smaller, I think, is the answer.
Yeah.
It's at the cost of this open space.
It's
The
at the
corridors
cost
we
of
had to,
what?
it's at a cost to the amount of square footage allocated to the Civic.
Okay, so, but it's just so hard because we don't have the layout here.
Yeah.
They just slid
We
it.
just have such
And I
incomplete
know it
information,
slides,
it's
but,
very difficult.
there's something that shouldn't line up anymore inside. You're moving something separate
Uh,
from
Sure.
inside.
Just so that everyone knows, we're in schematic design, right? So we have been drawing in single line, trying to make sure that the program is kept as much as possible to the sizes that we all agreed to. So it's been very simple shifting. We haven't engaged the engineers, we haven't gone through all the stuff you need to get.
Right.
So I would say the reason you're not seeing plans is because that would take another couple of weeks to make sure that it all lines up, and we were kind of going at a quicker clip
Mhm.
because it seemed to be most focused on the architecture than to the other functions. So if you tell us we wanna make sure there's some alignment, we might say, yes, you can get opening to opening, clarify that.
Yeah.
You're right, shifting might be difficult.
What'll change on the inside is where the corridors connect to the main lobby, it's gonna have moved.
Yeah, quarter.
And then it'll just be a question on programming of the lobby and how do you solve that problem?
Yeah, I
We'll
think
work
we,
that out.
Yeah,
It
Okay.
is, we do test it, I just wanna give you guys a level of comfort. It's
Yeah.
not, we don't just make the images and say, oh, looks great, we're done.
but we
We
don't,
test it, and
but
so
we
we
don't
need
have to
another
worry.
layer to do these. and
you
we
have
do
to
work
worry,
with
you and Rick have to worry.
all those spaces.
We have to worry about the
Yeah.
lobby.
We have to worry about the
We
lobby,
don't worry about
yeah.
the lobby, and
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
really significant thing that you brought up, Steve, about
The doors.
I never, if you hadn't brought that up, I would have just assumed, well, walking in the middle door and you go out the other middle door, that they're all kind of aligned, because there's symmetry there. So I would never have asked that question.
We're here to help each other.
Thank you.
Hey, you moved the whole council chamber.
Steve?
It was a really good
Oh.
thing.
Steve,
Yeah, Rick.
Right.
I have a question of clarification.
Yeah,
When you were looking at options 1 and 2, the page which shows the council chambers, from looking at it kind of from the current council chamber, so you're looking at the whole building.
yeah.
I have two questions. If you look to the right side of both of the options, it appears that there's a one-story roof line on the right side of the main council chamber building where the changes have occurred.
Yeah,
And I guess my question is that one-story building, does that cover the pieces that are off of the main council chambers?
yeah, that's the
that are-
accessory things. Those accessory rooms and bathrooms.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so my second question is,
She'll let them-
when you look at option 1, it looks like the portico, the four-arched portico that opens onto the square is wider, and that image of option 1 shows the council chambers that has more seating, so I assume it's slightly wider. Whereas option 2, that portico looks, with 3 arches, looks, not as wide, and the council chambers is slightly smaller, which I don't understand that.
I didn't get it either, Rick. I didn't, it feels, you lose an arch going here.
They just made it smaller,
And it gets-
Steve.
Yeah, but it gets,
They just made
it
it
gets,
smaller.
well,
That-
you
But
would,
like
it only
both,
got
but
2
it's
feet
like
shorter.
both pieces are smaller.
But those
in
arches are
option
gotta
2.
be 10 feet wide.
But they're not
We
the
flipped-
same size.
We
either,
also
I don't
flipped to
think.
this
The
program.
width of the
Here, to help
breezeway
reduce.
is shorter.
No, I get that, but you see the arches, are the arches smaller on the left one, on the option 1?
No, they
Smaller?
are shorter. They're slightly shorter, but the dimension of the arching plan should be no different.
Yeah, I assume the arches are shorter, but look at the room that the arches, or that piece of structure that the arches open
There's
to.
no dimensions to look at.
It was, another way to ask it was,
I think that
what did
It
we
is just
gain in
perception.
option 2? Rick, how about if I ask it this way? What are we getting in option 2 that you don't get in option 1? Like, what's the benefit of option 2?
more distance from the water line.
It's only
That's
2
why.
feet though, isn't it?
No, it's about 10 feet, I think.
Oh, the water line's on the backside.
4 feet, I thought was.
Because
11 or
it's
15.
5 feet narrower, right? And it's on an angle, so
It's
it's about
also
4
a
feet.
smaller, just a smaller.
It's just a smaller building.
We're gonna save some money on
But-
costs.
And that was,
Yeah.
that was one of the, we thought we heard that last go round was, do we really need 8?
Do we really need it?
And so we
But the
did-
building's only 2 feet, what I didn't understand is if the building's only 2 feet shorter,
Is
because
that right?
the distance from, to this face of this building in one is 90 and the other is 88. And so, it's only 2 feet shorter, so I was trying to figure out why you have 3 arches. Like, how did you lose a whole arch and only lose 2 feet? That's what I didn't get.
Yeah.
This dimension from the bend to the
Uh-huh.
outer face of portico
Oh,
is 70 feet.
uh-huh.
Looks like they put program in.
Yeah.
They
This
put
dimension
program
is
back in
about
the elbow?
56 feet.
Yeah.
So we're getting this is a smaller building
Okay,
overall.
okay.
On option 2.
Option
Yes.
2.
The building's narrower too, correct?
How many square
It's
feet did you
shorter.
lose?
So we reduced that overall length of it, pulling it back to kind of free up some space here. You still haven't, you have, from the projection of the roof, we still have roughly the same area, but the footprint of itself is small.
How many square feet would you guess
So this is.
was reduced? going from 1 to 2.
This is about 320, that's gonna be 50 by roughly 50, 2,500. Where this one's about 60 by 50, so maybe 600 square feet.
Okay,
600 to 1,000.
so it's like, how much is that times 600? $360,000. Something
Well,
like that. At $600 a foot, it's $360,000.
I think that it's
Okay.
probably the best thing, if you guys could arrive at how many people you wanna
I
see.
think it'll be more or less. That's what the numbers
If you
are.
remember, we were at 35, then we went to 60, and we went to 85. So now we're just testing the water. So I think it would be great to know, maybe that's a really hard thing to forecast, but
We have 2 liaisons and 1 member of the public tonight. You
Well,
might give us some
we have-
insight.
Yes, but he can't speak.
Oh, he can't speak,
He's a
darn it.
mute, and he's
Darn
only,
it.
he can only hear.
Okay, well, we'll have to defer to our council members, I think, on that answer.
Well, in that case, you need to speak up.
Yeah.
About the size of the chambers?
Yeah.
It did get bounced
Yeah.
around.
Rick, did you hear that too?
Mr. Guttegolia? Yeah, because he wasn't here last year.
Yeah, go ahead.
And Rick,
Yes?
okay, size of the council chambers, and actually, I really think that we should have staff weigh in also, but my sense is that we don't necessarily need 80 seats, especially if we have the ability to overflow into the portico.
Yeah. I mean, we rarely get to 80 seats.
Right.
I mean,
And if we're gonna have a big council meeting, we can go to the pavilion and have, 100 people, or 200 people, or whatever. The problem I have with the second option is that Rose and I have been sidebarring here, and the bathrooms opening into the council chambers, that just will not work at all. That's just not something that we want.
Day class A.
Day class A, so either we have it open in the, the foyer in the outer area, but then you have to go outside to go in. But
That's a good
True.
point, and we thought about that one too, is do these really
Yeah.
make sense here? And if we were to take them, we could potentially flip them over to this zone, and we would just maybe it's split storage, or
Right.
easy,
Split
we could
storage.
flip that.
yeah,
So we
and-
definitely could
yeah.
accommodate that.
Yeah, I mean, can't we just kind of use the option 1 plan, but kind of make it
Smaller?
smaller? Instead of keeping the 4 arches and then that pop out, so you've got the 4 arches and you've got the pop out, kind of push the face of the building back a
I
bit.
think it's that for you.
On option 1 or option 2?
Option 1.
I can't read it.
So this is a 32-foot width and about a 10-foot depth. 10 feet by 32 feet.
Sorry.
I meant this.
This
That's
is,
16.
yeah, 16
So
out
you
to
could
out.
take 6 feet out of that,
Right.
skinny it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mayor,
I like the
Chair.
3 arches.
Yes.
Yes,
Did you ask for comment from staff as well? on the side?
yes, please.
Yes, I would love.
So remember, the council chambers in this scenario in our construction is also doubling as the county's emergency operations center. And in the emergency operations center, you've got 5 sections set up at round tables, 8 each. So that's at least 40 people around 8-foot or length tables like these, along with phones and other things and operational things on the walls and that sort of thing. That's issue number 1 that we would need to make sure we can continue to address. Option 2 is the size of this council chambers compared to the size of that council chambers. This council chambers for this meeting, which is a typical thing in a council chambers, we're sitting up here because we really don't fit around those tables down there for this sort of a committee meeting. So we're going to have a council chambers that doubles as a multi-use function for our community groups and community meetings like this. We need enough space to do that. Not to mention, as I mentioned last meeting, the community events and forums and opportunity for the community.
See, it's really hard to have a sense because there's no dimensions. I don't have like,
They're just hard to read. They're up there, just really hard to read, yeah.
well,
Yeah, I mean, I think you can, I know this may not be satisfying, but here's a town, this is the room we're in, right? So you can imagine that against that.
yeah, it looks much bigger. The other one looks much bigger.
Can you blow up the one on the right? Because there are dimensions there, they're just so tiny,
Yeah,
by the
and I
time you
can,
print them
I
out,
can
you
kind
can't
of
read
walk you
them.
guys through this.
No, I
Probably
think-
easiest from the boards here. So we're looking right now at option 1. This dimension from corner bend, sorry guys if you can't see, from this corner to the side here would be 60 feet. This is a 10-foot dimension from here to here.
So it's about 50 feet inside the chambers.
Here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about right.
Well, there's a square footage amount on the inside of the chambers, right? Isn't
This area right here is about 1,400 square feet. That's the blue zone
there? And this room
for the
here?
room. This room, I believe, is more 12 or 1,300.
Yeah, it's not a lot bigger. It's not a very big, it's
I'm
not,
I'm pretty
you're
sure.
not gonna walk in and go, my
Does it not seem-
goodness, this is huge. It's not gonna feel big.
Well,
This is
see,
small.
if that's, I mean, putting that perspective on it, we just don't have that perspective.
Yeah,
Um,
it's not a lot bigger. It just feels like it, cause one set is
Because you're
bigger than the
going-
other, but it's
yeah,
one more
you're
row of
back
chairs
there.
is all it is.
Right, and there's no dice, you're sitting on a
For
horizontal table.
flexibility, you ask for a flat floor.
Right,
So this is really
That's part of
much
it.
smaller than what,
yeah.
Paul, do you know the distances from right here to that wall right there? Can we just,
That's
let me
probably
just-
about
Are you gonna
Yeah.
step it off?
40 feet.
Ah, there's a,
The big efficiency in this room is that it's wider. And the council doesn't take up, you guys take up a lot of space because you have the big curved table and there's all the stuff behind you
yeah,
that will go in other rooms. So it'll feel way more efficient in that room.
yeah,
But it's not gonna feel huge.
It's what, 30 feet?
30 feet,
Yeah. So I basically added this, you're down 50 feet.
Yep.
okay, and so,
So this isn't much, that's not much bigger. It looks bigger on paper, but I don't think
Looks
it's gonna be.
Yeah.
well, because we have that outdoor 10-foot, 16-foot
Yeah.
outside space,
The other
which
thing
you
that,
don't have really here.
that may be throwing this off, just to clarify the graphic here. So this is the roof line we're reading. So that's what we're seeing on the site plan. So that's gonna expand the way we kind of perceive it, but
right,
ultimately that's what we're seeing here. Makes it
Right.
look really, really big,
which
but
makes it look.
ultimately this is our program area,
Okay.
right? So that's probably part
And
of
that
the
big
confusion.
space behind the funky shaped thing that looks
The
like a
purple
J.
space, yeah.
This.
Yeah, what is that?
Right now it's mechanical, potentially
Oh,
double
it's-
serving
So it's
council
high,
and
it's
police.
not an exit vestibule or something?
No, we'd probably, well, the mechanical would have service access off the bat, nice and clean, easy place for it. But yeah, then we would exit, the chamber would have exits
But
here.
it could be all the AV equipment and the stuff that sort of sits here.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, some of these spaces are a little tough. Our mechanical engineers may look at them and say, what am I gonna do here? So that, we may find that that's better for AV, for instance.
Is the consideration to block off one row of seating
Uh-huh.
from option one,
Mhm.
just to shorten the length of the chambers?
Yeah, it seems long and narrow, if you blocked it off and then made it wider.
So wider in this
In
dimension.
Taking from the
And
outdoor
taking-
lounge
Taking
space.
space from the loggia,
Uh-huh.
which is fine.
Uh-huh, which I think would be, don't
You
you?
could go,
I think it's fine.
you could reduce it by a couple feet.
So same square
Why?
footage.
But if you do that, you're gonna lose your ability to have that corridor. You'll end up with the long room they have in the option 2.
A
In
long
the
room?
service area, they have the enter from, like now you have you're gonna lose that corridor
What corridor?
above the blue and below the purple.
Where the
Above?
bathrooms are at.
You have that kind of service corridor back there.
No, I like that. Keep
Well,
that.
if you make the building narrower, it's gonna go away.
No, not narrower.
Shorter,
Or-
I think you meant.
I'm sorry, I mean, if you make the council chambers wider, you're
Why?
gonna lose that corridor.
Why?
Well, because you're gonna make it wider both directions to make it symmetrical.
No.
Here.
Then you're gonna
And
get a,
just push
but
that
then
over.
it's gonna look weird with the roof line. You're gonna have an asymmetrical
They
view.
need to work with the roof line.
But I'm just
Yeah.
saying that building's gonna become asymmetrical.
Yeah, it would have,
No.
Steve, I see where you're going. It would
Or
almost
one
have to
side
be
would, one
an
bump out would
extended-
be narrower than the other. The left bump out would be narrower than the right bump out.
would have-
Nobody's-
if
But
you
You may
put
not
symmetry-
care. It may not matter.
Nobody's
Exactly.
But I think last time we talked about making this
Yeah.
functional area, right? If it
Yeah,
would
but,
make this
you
functional
know,
area.
God, I hate to say this again, we've got
Because
this
it's
space
too
anticipated to be the open space or the community space, we've got so many spaces in the library that's gonna be community space.
Yeah.
We
Now
thought
you
it
want
was
this
last
loggia here
Yeah.
to be community
I'm just
space.
not sure.
How many
Do we
things
vote?
are we gonna have?
We're gonna have parties all the time.
Oh, well, that explains it
All right,
then.
let's take a quick vote, because I think otherwise we're gonna spend an hour debating the loggia. So we're gonna vote on one of two loggia depths, 10 feet or 15
Can I
feet?
clarify something?
You
though?
can try.
Sorry, I'll try.
Okay,
I think we could reduce this and not make a mirror. I think we could
The
figure out
two
how-
sides, the two
They could
bump
be
outs could be different, okay. But the question is, how wide do you, how big should the loggia be? Big enough to stand in or big enough to sit in? If you want to be able to sit out there, it's 15 feet. So who would prefer 10 feet deep loggia, narrower? So that's 1, 2, 3,
It's cutting down the size.
4. Okay, and who has a preference for 15-foot deep loggia? You can put tables out there. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's split. Yeah, and I could go either way. I kind of prefer the 15 feet, but I wasn't going to be the tiebreaker. My gut.
I'm in position.
Oh, Rick, yeah, go ahead.
I'm in the same position. I could go either way. I think I prefer the 15 feet, but I could go either way.
Yeah, you'll never get it back is the problem.
That's the problem.
You'll never. I think at 10 feet it becomes kind of a wasted. It's a
Yeah.
purposeless space.
Why have it?
It's an overly deep vestibule, and at 15
But
feet
you know,
it's
the
usable.
loggia was never part of our program, it just appeared one day,
Right,
you know?
it did,
It did
It
appear.
was not
Right.
something that we wanted,
right.
so we're getting 10 feet of something that we never asked for, so that's pretty good.
It became a part. No, that's not totally true. It became a part of the No, it wasn't. We did discuss it at length. It was if we have a larger council meeting and we don't want to go to Holbrook Palmer and we want people to be able to sit right outside and we can open up the sidewall and they can sit there, should we have this? That's where it came from.
And you don't think with 10 feet
With 10 feet,
width?
you can put the portable chairs out there and still sit
Absolutely.
there.
I think so, yes.
But
you
you
know-
can't use it as an entertainment space.
You're not going to use it for anything else.
We
Yeah.
don't need
Yeah.
it for an entertainment
We
space.
don't think we need it?
No.
We have plenty of entertainment spaces.
This place is going to be an entertainment space,
not a
that's
country
why we're
club.
having a kitchen in here.
So Rick, if our two council members were aligned and said 10 feet, then I think we would just go to 10 feet. But so
I'm not. I don't have a strong opinion.
okay.
Okay,
So I would.
I'll-
I'm not aligned for 10 feet. That's not my position.
What did he say?
I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not aligned
He
to it.
doesn't have a-
He's not aligned with the 10 feet.
Yeah, he could go with it. He and I were feeling the same way. All right, so why don't we let that incubate with
Well, since
everybody?
he doesn't have a strong opinion, let's,
Like-
override him.
Yeah. All right, so Elizabeth, let's get to where that started though. You want the council chambers to be wider? Is that your point?
It just
Was that what's
seems
driving
too
that?
long and narrow to me, and how many rows are you got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Eight
7,
and seven.
8.
Yeah.
You got 8, 8 rows, and, it just seems, I don't know.
Why don't we incubate on this and come back? Because to me, it feels like we're arguing over little things
All
that
right,
aren't
yes,
really that big a
absolutely,
deal.
yeah, but.
It feels like we're getting hung up on little stuff.
Okay.
Okay, so why don't we now, are you done
But the
presenting? Can I go to everybody?
bathrooms, bathrooms are really, really clear about. in
Yeah,
option
you
2.
can't walk,
You cannot do that.
no stink
Okay.
exiting into the
Yeah,
council
don't
chambers.
put
Yeah,
those
or
bathrooms.
flush
there.
noises.
Put them back on the
Yeah.
other side in that little hallway. Yeah.
They have to be, yeah. All right, great. All right, so any further, I think we're done with presentation plans. So Elizabeth, would you be willing to lead us off in comments?
It's real, the only reason I'm so anxious to do this is because they're not really all my comments. A resident has, and I've made copies of the email that he sent out, so, and then he sent some other pictures, but, it has to do with the Fair Oaks facade. Those are 3, and, let's see, somebody has, so I hope I made copies of everything. So this is, and he would love to have been here, but he couldn't. His name is Steve Ackley, and he's a resident of Atherton, and he has some thoughts and fairly simple edits that would greatly enhance the exterior of option 1. He had looked at these, and he's kind of followed the whole process.
His images, he said see
And-
images. Is that-
Yeah,
do you
and
have
he's
8 of
got
them?
images, I'm
Great.
not gonna give them to you
Not yet?
Okay, so, well, I guess I could, but you'll look at the images and you won't listen. So, so he's saying, again, he feels the right-hand side is too boxy and flat. And he's got some tweaks that would soften and enhance. There, in Spanish Santa Barbara style, there's a campanile element, right? maybe if we added a campanile element on the right-hand corner, it would kind of soften that boxy feel, and it doesn't have to be a huge campanile. Do you not have one?
I was gonna give one to John.
Okay.
He's taking notes and give him the memo. I'll just share with you.
And we'll pass, you can pass the rest of those down. So there is a kind of an image on the lower right-hand side where it shows this like a campanile, or there's one in the very top left-hand side that shows two campaniles and very balanced, and it's a much bigger building, I think. But,
34. Oh, I know, but what are these? Campanile is gonna be jutting over and above what we have here, isn't it?
maybe we could go before the planning commission and get a little variance.
Oh, no.
Just, anyway,
I'm
that's
just
okay.
pointing out something I know
Yeah,
about.
well, okay, but to give some relief to that second story, on the right-hand side by setting the top half back by 3 to 5 feet and adding a balcony or walkway
Can you pause for one second?
Yes.
Is there a setback? Because it kind of looks like it on the left-hand, it looks like there's a little
It's
ledge
very
there.
difficult for
Is there like
me
an
to
eight-
see.
No, over on the very right-hand corner.
Did you set
Is there
back
like
that
an
whole
18-inch
second
setback
floor?
there?
Yeah, that's 2 feet.
It's 2 feet, yeah. It looks like you can see it
So-
on the corner where
Okay,
that sticks
yeah.
out a little
This,
bit.
But it's-
this plane
Yeah.
recesses the concrete
So the
truss.
bottom
Okay.
set
So
back.
maybe that has already done, but, from looking at these plans, it
Whoops, sorry.
didn't appear to be that.
Okay.
And again, consider setting the whole right side of the structure back a few feet to soften it, again, because we, just feel that is just,
Even a little more.
it's an appendage. It's like there's not this symmetry of a architectural facade. And then there's some other detailing, like if you set back, if you look at the lower right-hand image, you see where the second floor is kind of set back behind the window mullions with the railings. That's a very Spanish style or Santa Barbara style of effect, and it kind of gives, instead of a flat surface of the building, you have more of a definition and depth. So
Did you understand this one?
So all the comments are related to the Fair Oaks.
only the Fair
Yes.
Oaks side.
And what's
Yeah.
this fourth bullet, what does it mean further, what did it, I'm not following this one as well, further detailing with some
The
simple.
last bullet.
It's just
This one.
oh,
like
he's
this.
looking at University, 250 University Avenue or whatever that is.
Right.
But that's not that.
Well,
looks
that's
like
not
it.
it, but it's
looks like-
similar.
yeah.
It is kind of similar.
Saying add more
Yeah.
frame.
Add more kind of
Yeah.
definitions. And then the detailing of the frame on the door, because we're looking at the council chambers arch door, and of course, you just don't have the detailing on that. But to kind of frame that with, to make that a little bit more
It's-
interesting.
It would be worth telling these guys who Steve is, in case Steve is,
We've
you know
met,
Steve,
yeah.
he's one of he's one of the most prolific builders in town. So, and his houses are
board chair at Sacred Heart.
highly received as a really lovely houses and people like them.
Yeah.
It's not a random input.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, great. Elizabeth, any
But-
personal comments you wanted to add on top of that?
Well, this is, I just feel that, we're getting there. It's just we're not there yet, and it has to be jaw-dropping beautiful. I think it has to be stunningly, breathtaking. Go, wow, that kind of a feeling, so that for the donors to feel excited about it, and that we're making something that is timeless and beautiful, and not compromised. I don't want to feel that we're compromising, and it's so. I don't know about the height limitation of the campanile. I think, in fact, he did a little tissue drawing overlay and just overlaid that with a little campanile on the side. It made a
I know. I mean, just looking
difference.
at this, I think these are great ideas, and I think as we move forward, these are more next level of detail, but I think that if WRNS keeps it in their back pockets, some of these elements, you know, I think they're great ideas, you know, you just have to sort of pick and choose, but the Campanile idea is a good idea too. You know, I just wonder about the height, and if you think the planning commission can override it or something, because it can't be a Campanile, because we already hit our 34 feet, right? I mean.
Like the ridge line, so they may have some, because the roof is slanting, there may be some possibilities.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not the designer there.
It's
Yeah.
a
And it
proportioning thing, right? I mean,
It's a
yeah.
Yeah, it's a proportioning thing, and it's just, I don't know, the plate height, again, in talking to the left-hand side of the building, it doesn't seem like it's in line with each other. The right-hand side seems bottom-heavy, and, you know, and it should kind of maybe come down and be more in line with the other side of the building. Rick, do you have anything to add to this?
Well, I've got my opinions on these options. Should I?
Rick, why don't you go ahead and go next?
Well, I mean, what Steve had articulated, because I think
I like Steve's ideas. I'm not sure about the Campanile. I think that runs into height problems. I like what he did around the door. I like the concept of moving the block. Well, so my general comment is, from the Fair Oaks view, I think that the image in option 1 is far better than in option 2. And I agree that the only concern I have with it is what Elizabeth is articulating. Personally, I don't feel so strongly about it, but I've heard other people talk about it, that it feels too much blockish and too much of a mass on the right side of the entry, and it would be better to move that back. I don't know how that impacts the roof line, so I don't know what's feasible there, but I think that the image from option 1, I think it's a huge move from what we've seen before, and it seems to me like we're getting there. I think that from the courtyard view, I don't, frankly, other than the council chambers, when I look at the admin and the police buildings, I don't see any difference whatsoever. I can't tell that there's a difference between option 1 and option 2. And they look fine to me. On the council chambers, I like the look of the council chambers in option 1 better than option 2. I think that the side windows off of the arch in option 1 help soften the front of that building. Somehow you need to make it apparent that that's the entrance, and it does. Maybe if there was some work around that doorway, like Steve suggested in his last image, which I like that idea of, just an architectural image of pulling some of the stucco out around the doorway to sort of define it. Maybe something like that, but it feels like a nit to me. I really feel like we're getting there. That's pretty much my comments.
Did that make sense to you, John?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I got it.
How about we go this way around, and where do you want to go next?
Sure. I like everybody else, prefer option 1. I like everything about it in terms of it being better than option 2. Option 1 chambers, however, I prefer the 3 arches, and maybe if we shorten it, it will come out to the 3 arches. I think the 4 arches look was just a little excessive, no matter what. So even if we stayed with that length and whatever, I think the 4 arches is way too excessive. I like the treatment of the roof along the front Fair Oaks, the way you brought it all across. I think that breaks up that's one way of breaking up that facade. Now, the other problematic block, I think it's that space between the window and then the top of the window and the ground floor to the bottom of the window on the second floor. I think everybody's grappling with that white space. You know, something, it seems disproportionate somehow, I don't know, I can't explain it either. But, you know, some other elements, you know, I wouldn't go extreme as another roof line, you know, a fake roof line, but something, it just seems disproportionate and, you know, maybe working on that a little bit more. Shutters, you know, even though the metal, you know, I didn't like the idea of wood shutters, you know, metal shutters, and I think you thought it was the material that I objected to. It's the material of the wood, and I'm not really bought into shutters, metal shutters yet either. You know, if everybody agrees and likes it, I'm okay with it. It's nothing that I feel strongly about, but putting shutters on this building just seems to be not the best option yet. You know, I haven't seen a good option, and I know what you're trying to do is you have a certain size window and you try to make it look bigger, because if you don't make it look bigger, it's going to look, you know, kind of puny. So, but I prefer not to have shutters, and so I have no answer except that whether it's metal or wood, it's not my first choice, but others may like it. Let's see, you know, I like the back, and, you know, I don't know if the consensus is to work with the arches again, the doors, windows, the three arches, because they don't line up, Steve. I don't know if that's what you're saying, is that we've got to rework that so they line up. So I'd like to see how that looks if it does line up. I don't, in option 2, which I don't, is my second choice, I don't prefer that. I'm not too fond of that tile element that you talked about putting on the facade either. You know, I've seen that in application in some places, and it seems a little bit, it's an old look, you know, and I'm not sure I like it very much yet, because I can't see it very well except for, you know, what you put as a sample. And again, shifting 7 feet back, is that the most you can shift the admin back? You know, that's a question, maybe a clarification question I could have asked. Is that the maximum that you could without impacting the internal layout, or is there more, you know, length that you could consider shifting it back to create a, you know? And as far as Steve Ackley's concepts, you know, I think that he's got some good ideas here. You know, these are all elements of something that could be attractive to the building. Maybe take a look at it. You know, I'm not sure this building lends itself to balconies. I mean, we talked about that once. Having balconies in an office type building is, I don't know if that's very efficient maintenance probably.
I don't think he means a real balcony.
Oh.
He means like a faux balcony.
A faux balcony?
Right.
Okay, so just the metal,
Right, just kind of set back a bit,
Okay.
not a full balcony.
Okay, well, that's a thought too.
Yeah.
Somebody think about that.
Yeah.
And some of these, you know, looking at this visually, it sort of has a wow factor. You know, when you look at the prints that he, you know, that he gave us. And I like the idea of a tower campanile, but I just don't know how that's going to work with the height. You have to find an area where the roof maybe is lower and, you know, jutted out. It doesn't have to be a very high campanile.
Elizabeth, we really need to keep moving, because it's, we're burning a
Oh,
lot
I'm
of time.
talking, why'd you say
Yeah.
Elizabeth?
No, well, she was,
Oh, you're
I want to get all the way
okay,
around.
so that's all, I'm
Yeah.
done. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, when you're ready, Rose.
I'm done.
Okay,
I-
Gary. Thank you.
So I really like this version 1, and I think it accomplishes a few different things. I think that it's kind of residential meets commercial. I think it's traditional meets a little bit of modern. Just a few little comments to me though. On the front left-hand side of the front face, it feels like it needed a little more eave to the second-story roof. It's a little abrupt the way it stops there. And I think there's just a little bit of plainness on there that you might be able to add something, you know, architecturally. I think there's a little disconnect between, there's not a tie in between the two parts of the building, but I like the setback, and it just feels good. On the back, I think again on the left side wall, it's a little plain. It'd be great to kind of, you know, just put some design design enhancements to it. It's the same thing with the front of the entrance to the council chambers. I do like the 4 archways. You know, I think that this is not a very expensive space. We're gonna have more volume to the building. This is not a bad place to do it. But as you guys say, it's, I don't think anyone's gonna fall on the sword for it. But I think these are stunning drawings. I think they're beautiful.
Paul?
Option 1 as well. I'll keep this short. And as I look at the pictures from Mr. Ackley, I'm thinking that Fair Oaks entrance, from the very beginning when we were going over site plans before we involved you, there was always talk of that sense of arrival and a place to, you know, the building of theirs, that there is what Elizabeth always says. And I think in looking at the upper left one, the upper left here, that maybe what we're missing is a balance or a symmetry with a central entrance that says,
Here we are.
you're here, or enter here, or something like that. Not that you need to have this architecture, but I like the balance and the center entry point there. So I'm thinking maybe that's what's lacking because it's kind of out of balance. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Dee Dee?
Option 1 is the better of the two, in my opinion. I'd like to just correct John. Bougainvillea probably won't work there without a covering. We get frost here.
Gotcha.
Okay, and then just, I really like Steve Ackley's upper right drawing. And it makes me look at the space you created in front of the wall that we were dealing with and say, well, if it had a roof like that on it, I probably would have liked it. If that part of the program can't get moved someplace else. So there's some elements of that. It looks residential. I'm guessing this is it could even be a big house. Whereas these other buildings look more commercial. I don't like the shutters. I'm questioning the shutters. The back, I like the council chamber version. One detailing. I got, with the little windows on the side and one on top and the one on the end of this punch out here, but I think it sounds like from the size point, it's probably going to have 3 smaller council chambers. Otherwise, something about the front doors here on option 1 bothers me. And if they don't match up, then it bothers me even more.
Yeah.
So I think we're close, but I don't think we're there.
What is it about the front doors? Is it that they're industrial looking versus residential, or
It
what
almost
is it?
looks like a jail.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, but that's a bad analogy. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But it's
There's a grid there that you don't like.
it's just not soft.
Okay.
Well, I don't think there's any detailing around them, like framework or.
No, I think we need to be careful asking for a lot of detailing until we see the costs.
It would, exactly, but
It's
I mean,
gonna
on the
really
plan,
impact it.
yeah.
So I'm afraid to ask for detailing.
Christine, think you're up.
Yeah, I'm in line with just about everybody. I like 1 more than 2. I do agree that both sides of the buildings need to unite a little bit more. I'm not an architect, so I don't know how to do that. I do like the low roof, the terracotta roof that goes around the front of the first option. Of course, I think for the first option, the larger chamber and the outside loggia can be very useful, but I've only been hearing a lot about community use and excitement around community use. So that's why I keep pushing for that. And I do like the detail, and the one question I would have in the detail that Steve had suggested, and I like all of it, is how much money would it cost to add those? And I agree that the shutters seem not quite appropriate for the rest of the building, but I'm not an architect, so that's it for me.
All right. For me, the things that I think I'm feeling very similar to almost everybody. Things I would emphasize are the building desperately wants to be symmetrical, and it's fighting it like crazy not to be. So, and that's going to push the issue of the courtyard outside the police department. And what is that going to serve as? Because the real courtyard that's developed is between the council chamber and the town hall and the terrace in front of the library. So we have to decide if we're prepared to give up 20 feet of that courtyard to have a flush building along Fair Oaks that can look more like a house and more symmetrical. I think that is the underlying question we're struggling with, I think.
Just if you're saying pushing that, just push that back.
Flush.
Yeah.
Just stop monkeying around, push it flush. I don't know if you pull the police building a little bit this way and you push the other one back,
Or
10 feet each or something,
Yeah.
but it's something like that.
what if you compromise a little bit and just take a portion of the right building, and continue the police building into it, and then put that on the outside and the back, so that you kind of extend the back a little bit.
Not sure if I'm
along.
following, but let me keep
Okay.
going through it.
Yes,
Carmen.
okay.
But I think from the get-go, people said we wanted to look the most residential possible from Fair Oaks. And this is a little too Stanford engineering quad,
Yeah.
which is beautiful. Let me back up. This is it's coming along, you guys are making great strides. We're now in a vernacular that we like. The massing is appropriate in most ways, but I think this facade wants to feel residential. And so I think you want to make it, I don't want to say flat, but you want one continuous face that can be kind of symmetrical. I struggle with the blank space on the left, on both lefts, the first back and front. I'm not sure where Dee Dee's fountain is out there. I don't know if that's the thing that people are sitting on.
Bring it up, 'cause it's not there.
Is that a fountain where there are two people over there, John? Is there a fountain there? Is there?
Not the best fountain in the world.
But there's a fountain there?
There is.
Okay.
Might be your attempt.
Okay, all right. I think we're gonna end up with a very traditional fountain, just knowing this crowd.
Kept it simple.
Okay, I saw the shutters and I felt like it was an applique, like, we didn't get there, so we threw some wood up. That's how it felt to me too.
Sorry, Steve, are you saying you like version 1 versus version 2?
Clearly, yeah, when I opened version 2, I wondered why we had it. I was like, I'm not even sure that why this is here. But I was gonna be positive about that. It was a choice to make you pick the other one, yeah.
In retailing, they call it a loss leader.
The only comments I have on the backside are,
More of a presentation.
the, ladies, can you join us? Can you join us? Thank
No,
you.
excuse me.
The-
Okay, fine.
Thank you very much. The police, for me, the police wing is long. It's, the only on the back that to me is out of scale is the police wing is a little long. So when we slide back the admin, it's just fine, because that wing will get shorter, I think that's just fine.
But then there's the white space between the last police department window and the arches that's gonna look blank.
That is, and that's that mechanical room. So
Yeah,
that's
they'll
really
slide program.
strange,
These are smart people. They'll move the program around, and we're gonna encourage them to be
That-
smart.
So you can't put a window there,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
have to.
you're gonna lose some glass line
fancy
when
it.
you slide back the building. There are gonna be some spaces that are now internal that were previously on the wall. And then I struggle with do you put the doors, my instinct is with the metal grid, as much as I like it, it is a commercial grid on those windows and on the arches.
Sorry.
I think that as much as I love metal grid, like the metal windows, and it's really in right now for tech firms, and we're building lots of new buildings that look like they were built in 1900 or 1920 or 1880. It doesn't feel residential to me, and I love the look, but I don't know that it's working for this building. And so I think you really want to stay with a residential window feel. And I think like the doorway at 245 Linden is a residential field. I mean, it's very large residential fields like Ralph Lauren or something. That's what he designed it based on. That's where it came from. Or he wanted it to feel like that. But so I would just rethink the fenestration. I like the big windows, but I think they want to be more soft. Those are my biggest comments. On the size of the council, chambers, I would err on being too big. It's a marginal change of $300,000 or $400,000 on a $38 million project. Whatever this project is, I think it's one of those penny wise, pound foolish moves that I just would be very careful not to squeeze it too much. But that's
Steve,
my
you
two
could where
bad.
you're balancing the facade. I hear what you're saying generally, but how do you envision it?
It's tough because, well, the staff, WRS and staff are convinced that you can't have comparable glass line in the police department, that's one of those, like, we're kind of, we have like one arm tied behind us because we're not allowed to talk about programming. But if you were designing this building from scratch, from the outs, if you started from the outside
Yeah.
as opposed to from the inside,
Mhm.
it would be a symmetrical building
Mhm.
with an entrance in the middle.
Mhm.
And the two wings would look like each other,
Yeah,
more or less, and then you would figure out how to fit the program inside.
yeah.
So this one got designed from the inside out, which is just, it's different, right? That's not, as a developer, that you don't usually do it that way unless you have a user. In this case, the user started, and then we're supposed to put a skin on it. And that's why it's such a struggle.
Yeah.
That's why we're fighting so hard. It's like, oh my God, how do you make it work?
Well, are you talking to make it flat, or are you talking about like, having kind of the buttresses come out a little bit?
They could, I'm very biased by 245 Lynn because I'm one of the owners of the building.
Yeah.
But, it's a nice building. The wings stick out a little bit. They have articulation at different levels. They come, the ends of the buildings come forward from the center a little bit. Yeah, Steve gave these are great images.
This top right
Can,
one is,
can I,
you describe it as a lot
I think
like
it's
that.
Clive's
Yeah.
turn.
Yeah,
And-
okay.
And then I'd like to have a turn.
Okay,
because
Clive, you're
I
up.
haven't expressed my opinions, I've expressed Steve's opinions.
You had a chance, but we'll come back.
Clive, yeah, that's it.
Go ahead, Clive.
Okay. So I think one of the, if we decided to stay, if you recommended that we stay with the right-hand side bumping out somewhat, in other words, we don't go to a totally flat image. If we were to try to improve what's there today, I think what's throwing us is the fact that this roof line is just continuing. If the right-hand structure had a different roof line, was lower or higher, so it didn't appear to be trying to be the same building. It was like a separate structure. But when you look at these drawings, there's lots of little bump outs, and where there's a bump out, it has a different roof line. Like even this one in the lower left, the roof jumps up like just a couple of feet, so it creates a different feel. The eaves don't just line through. So that to me is part of what's throwing off the right-hand structure. And if we had this tower or campanile or some feature like that, maybe it should be more at the entrance, so that's where the entrance is. So you can, I'm saying if we stuck with this sort of L-shaped layout on Fair Oaks, drawing attention to where the entrance is by means of a tower or elevated
Elevation.
section, even if it's nothing more than what Steve has got in the lower left. So anyway, those are my comments. Other than that, option one is clearly better. Council chambers better.
There's a bottom picture from Steve in case we haven't used it before.
Say what?
There's a nice fountain
Elizabeth.
at the bottom.
Okay, all right, so, option one obviously is the best of the two. And the first floor windows, I don't like shutters at all, and so I think that the reason you were doing shutters was because the windows look skinny otherwise and blank. What if you, and you want to do it so that you can put offices in there, right? But what if you clustered the windows in a sense, instead of having them, symmetrically spaced? I mean, I've seen architectural designs, and I don't think anybody, I have any examples of them here, but sometimes the windows are not exactly, symmetrical, but that's a thought. The other thing about maybe taking a piece of the bump out, so I've done it on the site plan. If I could, can I get up and do the site plan? Can we show a site plan? And I'll just show you what I was thinking of, and whether or not that's even possible. Interior-wise. And I won't draw it, but what if you come and you just lop off, say, this much, this little section here, to enlarge the face of the building. Maybe put your campanile or your little height section here, like your little tower, as the architectural feature, and that way you can kind of really make your doorways fit. And so this little section here that you take off here, well, you have to add it. So what if you just add it back to here, and you're not encroaching a lot on all this, open space. Is that something that could be done? Now I know maybe interior-wise, you get funky, or maybe I think you get more window line and more corner offices for all of our staff. Because you'd have it here and then along here and then bumped out here also. So, I mean, is that a possibility rather than trying to lop off all of this and putting that much back here, right?
So we've given you an impossible assignment. Because you guys are way down the road on this, and it's a pretty good drawing.
Yeah.
I showed it to my family, we're like, that's a nice building. That'd be a nice civic center for Atherton. And I think we're just struggling with,
The facade.
yeah.
I don't think it's, okay, the impossible part is that you've all given comments of which some of them conflict with each other. So, as an example.
Hey, Steve, can I make one comment?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think all the comments are good. The one thing I really think would be a mistake is if the whole building went flat straight across. I think that would be, I think it's more interesting to have the right side pop out, and if it gets pushed back 10 feet, that's fine. But if it were straight across, I think it would be not anywhere near as interesting a building.
Well,
Yeah, I don't feel like it has to do it. I'm just struggling with did the left and the right of the building talk to each other?
right. And the plate height is the other thing that seems to not match up somehow. It seems kind of out of balance with the first floor being really heavy and the top floor being, you know.
Steve,
Yeah.
I know that Pauline et al. Is over there taking copious notes. Perhaps you could go through where your comments do disconnect from each other?
Well, sure, I'll try to, and I won't associate with who said that. I heard, it was just like the mayor was saying, he thinks that
I'm
the,
there.
sorry, the old mayor,
The
the
former
other mayor,
mayor.
the previous, excuse me, Mike.
Ex-mayor.
I've spilled a lot of blood on
Sorry.
my answers.
Sorry, Rick was saying he
Farmer.
preferred this sort of crenellated facade, and then I heard others prefer a flatter facade that was more like this. Then also, in these examples, this is relentlessly symmetrical,
Yes.
and this is not.
Correct.
They have,
Right.
so,
There's no symmetry involved.
right, so
The massing
you
is
can't
kind of
really
symmetrical, yeah.
melt those two.
No.
You can say,
No.
I like the elements of this, I would like my entrances to speak to each other and align as much as possible. So that would tell us something about what that entrance needs to be. And so we would move away from it needs to be an arch to they need to be aligned.
So Pauline, though, if you look at the examples and what the description under the examples,
Yes.
it's not that they're to be merged together,
Understood.
but it's like example of maybe a recessed balcony or, you know, oh,
It's
I
the
can't remember.
detailing.
It's,
No, no.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
okay.
I totally
Yeah,
got that.
got
Not
that.
a problem. I think it's more that within the group there was
Yeah.
a difference perhaps, and maybe that wasn't
I think
strong
it's
of a
more about the
difference.
detail. I think you may hear big changes, like really move it, but I think the underlying issue is detailing.
Okay, so move it is a bigger issue
Mhm.
because it is program that drives
Yeah.
where the stuff goes. So if we went back to, if you remember, this was, I hate that was the gun, but remember we went,
Yeah.
and we had it,
The 4 to
here.
5.
But
it was
yeah,
a loop, like a hook,
right.
Yeah.
and then we had the council chamber over here.
Yeah.
And then we moved it all the way because this had to be this was very important.
Well, we wanted to open it up.
So we're talking about that plaza area being
Mhm.
critical. If we think that's less important now, then that's a bigger plan
Well,
shift around.
when you lopped off the council chambers
Yeah.
and moved it over, you also moved everything else up further and opened the whole thing, because there was a little protrusion that I thought you were gonna leave, you know, and so when the next iteration, it was that, oh, you just moved everything to the front, and to me that, so there's just a little bit, if you can kind of bring it back a little bit, or a portion of it a little bit, to open up that front, because the doors and the arch windows, they just seem jammed next to this big 2-story structure, if you look at the elevation.
In which, sorry, just to
In
clarify,
the-
the
in
Civic
that-
court?
Yeah, no, up
No, the
there,
first-
the
yeah,
facade,
right
that's
there.
what, those three, you know, those just look like they're jammed up, and so if you kind of give them some breathing room.
So let me see if I can suggest it another way of what I hear you're saying is that it's okay to encroach now 10 to 20 feet more into the plaza because the council chambers like encroached 60 feet, so that went away. So a little bit of encroachment in order to get the front set back further would be preferred.
So how about we take a quick, okay, let's, hang on one
Look,
second.
Wait, look,
No,
see,
No,
we lopped that right off,
I know, I
and so
just
if you
want,
just kind of,
no, we get it. Can I just, I want to take a quick poll, because I want to make sure that we're not, how are people feeling about the amount of, the 23 feet? That's irrelevant, yeah. But who is uncomfortable with the 23 feet from the face of Advent to the doorway? Who would like that to be smaller? Raise your hand if you want it to be materially smaller, like half or less kind of thing.
You mean the protrusion of the right side
Yeah.
is 23 feet, is that what
Yeah,
you're
who
saying?
would like the admin building to push back at least 10 feet more, if not 20 feet?
okay.
I don't
So
know.
see,
I'm not in that
that's
group.
irrelevant, that's what, because what needs to happen is the face needs to grow, so the admin building needs to give the rest, the entrance.
You want
some
relief at the
breathing.
entrance.
I want relief, I want some space at the entrance, especially if we're gonna be going into that far right-hand
The diagonal.
Narrower protrusion of the
Yeah,
entrance.
you feel like it's crowded at the door.
So Elizabeth, this is feeling too,
No, but the door is the next one.
no, just, this is.
Yes, yes,
That's
even
still too
those,
pinched,
well,
right?
yeah, because it's just.
Because you've
it
got
has
us
not-
entering in the far right-hand one.
So if you entered here, would that be?
I still think that needs some space.
The,
Yeah.
Pauline, the first window on the admin side, on the facade right there, right, those first two windows, if those were eliminated and that whole section was pushed back, so all you had was 3 windows protruding out, maybe even narrower.
Yes,
So narrowing the.
That's what Elizabeth, you were getting at, right?
that's exactly what I'm.
She wanted to push that to the back.
Or not to the back, but.
But you have to
the-
take the first and second floors out and
Yep.
Yeah,
put that program somewhere else.
gotta go somewhere
Right.
else. And you take it all the way to the face of to the door face of the building?
Well, then the door.
Is that what you?
would come to the right.
Yeah.
Would just,
Yeah,
You
so
can
you'd,
figure out the
you'd have to
program.
move that block to the back, right? There's nowhere else to put it, is there?
Right, it just, kind of
It's
goes,
gotta go to the back.
yeah, I mean, like something.
It's really
like-
difficult when we can't see what's happening with the floor plan.
No,
Yeah,
it's
that's
not,
hard.
it's not our job.
Just remember on the inside down there, on
We
the
don't have
inside is all of your planning, building, and public works counter space.
Yeah.
That's what's
On-
going on downstairs.
On that little,
Post
funky-
office.
that right there?
Well, the whole ground floor lobby is.
Yeah, that's
Well,
all we.
there is, if I could, as I recall, this part were offices on the first floor and offices on the second floor. So the counter still stays there, but the question is whether some portion of that could go
There.
back there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Rose has a great idea.
Wow,
go for it.
Yeah, this is based
Your
on not
ideas
knowing
command
what's
a lot of
going on
attention.
inside and everything, but, you know, I
I think
think
it's
that,
dangerous to show us things.
you know, I think it's to get a
I really do.
smaller, you know, okay, lopping off those 2 windows. And then instead of making a little
Tail.
tail at the other side, just continue it all the way across.
Here, I'll do it.
just the whole wing wider.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, just
got it.
make it a more usable space than a little configuration.
So if we lop, excuse me, we're gonna lop this all off, right? Right?
You can lop any
And
note
then just put
part
it,
of it,
put
yeah.
it right back here.
Yeah, put it back there.
It's just,
A block, not
Yeah.
little.
How?
Not it?
just like this,
Yeah,
all the way.
yeah.
I mean,
I think that's where Pauline was going, whether that
Is
courtyard
that-
is still as important
okay.
as
But-
it was.
It's still.
what you
a
don't,
lot of
what you don't
courtyard.
want is to create a throat, like a narrow
And the
Corridor
entrance.
in there.
Pauline, is that clear? You get it? And I think the general sentiment is losing 10 feet back there doesn't matter. because it got opened up when we moved the council chambers.
Right, exactly.
And it's no longer an awkward space the way it was before.
Right.
when we
It
tried
wasn't
to
a
change
funnel.
it. Yeah.
Okay, so, just
Next
because I
time
think
you
it
go
would help us to,
okay?
we wanna take what your comments are and not necessarily your specific direction, right? Cause there's so many different comments,
Yeah.
so, I think that what I heard was pinched entry, doesn't feel gracious enough, needs more space.
That's fair.
Okay, so we'll work on that. Campanile or not, probably not as easy to do, honestly, because it's a proportion thing.
The other alternative to Campanile was have your roof line reflect the change in massing.
Okay, I don't think these are loved very much, and I think that we'll work some detail into either making them bigger or working through how to give it more detail.
And that's the face of the building most people are gonna see coming down Fair Oaks.
Yeah, there's a really nice image in that Ackley set on the lower left-hand side, which is just really about a relief. And we have some indication in other drawings, but it's just about a plane change,
Right.
which isn't quite it.
And tied in with the
Look at
left,
Paul all the time.
and tie that into the left-hand side, and that's the, I think that's the opportunity, tie it all in.
Right. So, does the entry need to have arches or not? Sorry, I just.
The arches are nice.
Okay.
Arches are
I think,
good.
I think the three arches was nice. The question is, how do we, I go back and forth between loving the metal windows and saying, oh my gosh, it's gotta be more soft. But I'm curious what everybody else thinks.
I like the metal windows with the narrow stiles and everything. I mean, it's,
Yeah, very
yeah.
thin.
I like the narrow.
People are okay with
I
it?
do.
No.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah, that's when
It's
it's gonna
just
be
the
binary.
drawing.
It's gonna be very
I
binary.
think it's just the
Yeah.
drawing,
I think,
you know.
I think if there's more room there, I wouldn't object so much to the metal.
I will say that a really beautiful, close your ears, exquisite metal window, a bigger difference in this architecture, so it's not so sort of commercial fat.
The building at the Care Campus that you showed us so many times had some big windows that had maybe a little wider mullion than the little
sure.
skinny metal ones.
Sure, yes.
And that might look a little softer.
Right, I guess I'm just saying, sorry, excuse for the shorthand, but it's not a Conair, window system, it's probably another level. Okay, so I think for the most part, except for this portion not being so loved, which we could add.
That's gonna change when you move the program back there.
Right. This portion was, okay.
Mm-hmm. We've never seen it head on though, just
That's
for the
right.
record. We've never been to the left looking at that elevation.
We can show it. It actually,
So we haven't really
I think
seen
looks
it
great,
yet.
Actually, it's
but
pretty.
we can show it.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
always think it's a little bit of cheating because no one ever really stands.
You're always gonna be there for more than 30
That's
seconds
not
or 10
necessarily
seconds.
true, because if you're out in that courtyard, you're gonna be looking at it.
You're gonna
I
be
mean,
walking.
you're gonna be,
You'll be
so-
walking.
yeah.
So, and then we'll work on this, right? That's about shrinking it a tiny bit.
I think you wanna get a
Christine's
clear
not saying
direction
yes.
on that before, I think you wanna,
It is.
I think you wanna push for a clear direction on that before you leave.
Yeah, I'm okay if it's big, if it's bigger. I just,
Just make sure the bathrooms
Who
go well.
really doesn't want it to be who really doesn't want it to be smaller?
Smaller than what?
Than it is.
Oh, doesn't
It
want
is.
it to be
Doesn't
small.
want it to be?
Does not
Sorry,
want
I'll
it
do
to
it the
be.
other way. Who wants it to be bigger, the bigger option?
Oh, yeah.
okay,
It seems like
I'll go big.
it seems like that's.
Go big or go home, huh?
It's
I mean,
gonna be so
know.
marginally different, you won't even be able to read it.
Steve, wait till the numbers come.
Is there
in,
any
you know?
absolute, I can't live with it if it's big?
No, it's all gonna come to the budget.
No,
I'm telling you.
yeah.
Yeah, it's coming to the budget.
Yeah.
It's coming to the budget.
Well, I have to say, there's a lot that's gonna come to the budget.
You got it,
Yeah.
there's a lot.
Of course, it is.
Yeah.
So that'll be a small component of all the other stuff. And a lot of small things that are adding up, but that's okay. All right.
So I think there was some massing discussion about the admin building, but there was also some discussion about articulation, floor plate line, how that datum registers across.
Yeah.
So maybe playing a little bit with the sill height here. Does it strike an alignment maybe with the eve of the low roof? something about that area could probably use another layer. But also, I think there was some comment about how the eve of this is terminated, whether that's captured, does it expose the structure, what does that mean?
I think you did hear that people did like the eave on the left.
Yeah.
And I think what you heard from Steve Ackley is that you want something as prominent on the right. Some detailing on the right that breaks up the two floors as prominently as it does on the left.
This isn't really like a campanile, but it's just like another little, you know,
Tower,
it's a little tower.
yeah.
It's just got up.
Instead
The
of
one
the roof
problem
line
that
coming
we
down,
don't-
it's the roof
You
line
want to
going
be
flat
careful where you
in
put
just
that,
that
because
area.
people will go to it to go in.
Well, that's why I
They'll
think
want there to get in.
I think it needs to be above the entrance bridge.
Yeah, you don't want to put it on the corner.
Just to get a bunch of palm trees.
Yeah.
I mean, from a staff perspective, maybe, you know, one of the things I've always felt working for cities is the city should do the same thing that it asks everybody else in the city to do.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you don't want to go above 34 feet.
I think that-
I sure wouldn't, but I wouldn't.
You mean
wanna
for the
go
whole
on
building?
for that.
Yes, because that's your maximum ridge height.
Right, no, we don't, yeah.
But they could do things like looking at a tower, maybe a flat roof in that one section at the corner, but not go over 34 feet. I just wanted,
Exactly.
okay, I just want to make sure you were, that was okay with
The
you.
other thing that we'd always said that we were gonna try to do is, you know, step it back a little bit so that the massing wasn't so in your face, along, Fair Oaks. And so what, you know, I've had this problem with is that we're just kind of in our face in this big, admin portion of the building. And so, you know, step it back a little bit.
How much does the area, how much does that bump out come out? Is that,
22.
no, from the flat plane,
Oh,
how much is this further out than that?
And then
This is probably about 8 feet.
Okay, so I don't know whether it's possible to make this more than 2, up to 8, and still
There's been
have it work.
some roofing concerns with deeper insets like that. If you put a clay tile or a real roof over it, then yeah, 8 foot.
I don't know if that's what the
Well, I
committee is
think
asking for.
the
Consider it up to 8 feet.
The piece that Pauline alluded to last time, and I think, or maybe it was 2 times ago, is that we are getting dangerous. We've crossed the line in design to design by committee, and what we really need for you guys is to be architects. But I think what was a struggle was to get to this style. It took a long time to get to Santa Barbara style. And now what we need you really to do is execute Santa Barbara style really well, given the internal needs of this building. That's where they're pushing back. And that's where I think it's really about detailing.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
That's really helpful. I think then, this is gonna be the important, just to get clarified for me, that kind of lopping it off one facade is not what we're asking for. Okay. And if this is appreciated, right,
Mm-hmm.
it will be easier to move there than here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, don't move
I
there.
just wanna make sure.
No.
It's just that they have to be related,
Yeah.
the sides of the
Yeah.
building.
Yes.
Exactly, and, yeah.
They have to look like the same
I
person.
think that
through
was
them.
just kind of an example of a big campanile, which is, you know, way too big.
Hey, Steve, are you okay with the roof line on the second story, the left-hand side? Because again, that to me is, it's an unbalanced, right? There's.
You mean that there are no eaves?
Yeah,
Yeah.
That is kind of odd, yeah. That's a
Yeah.
detailing
Well,
thing.
you're,
Yeah.
sorry, that was your question.
but it's a balancing, right?
There's no eve on the far left side of the police.
Yeah, why?
It has to do with all the relief they gave in the middle,
Oh, I
at
see.
the stairs or the
Right.
lobby, and then they wanted to have a consistent roof line so it didn't bump out.
Yeah.
The
Right.
roof line could bump out.
We could,
Yeah.
Then it would be it'd be way more interesting
Yeah,
too.
I think so
Yeah.
too.
And it would highlight that that's the middle of the building. Like there would be a lot, it would actually be an enhancement to the building.
And it is.
Right, here's the front door.
Here's the front door, yeah. But it's architecture. We really need you. John. Who's the lead architect? Is John taking over as our lead architect? Is it still
well,
Adam, or who's actually drawing?
everybody.
Oh, no, that's a part of the problem.
No, I mean, I think that it's just the way we work, it's not just sort of one hand, it's a lot of
Yeah.
conversation, so there are more people involved. But this will all come back John is absolutely a critical hand in it. What we'll want to do is maybe put it in this context. The 22nd is a community meeting.
Yeah.
And we've advertised up the wazoo. People are gonna come out in droves, and we have to have something great
So
to show them.
We can vote.
So it's not as simple as doing a couple of these.
Yeah.
It's a little more massive.
No, and we don't wanna show them 3 options.
No,
No.
right.
We're not, it's not one of those meetings.
Who knows?
One option.
Who knows?
Yeah.
It's about
we're not
2
there yet.
weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks. I mean, I think the fact that it was more unanimous on the first option is great. Because at least we understand a lot there, and actually the plaza is pretty well settled. And I agree, the talking around the chambers, we could figure that out, and no problem.
The outside
It's
is
really
kind of
the-
what it's gonna look like.
It's
on
the
chamber.
Fair Oaks,
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
1, 2. That's really not very much time.
No, it's quick.
2 weeks from today.
Yeah.
And we want to have, large graphics so that the public can get the latest sense of what it looks like. So, let me ask you this, and talk to the committee too, if this was what was shown, because there isn't enough time to make all of these changes to be what you want, obviously don't show option 2, but if this was what was shown, to people saying we're still refining it. So the question is, how much can you change that to incorporate all of these between now and have the large graphics for the 22nd?
I think the details, jump in if I'm wrong, but I think the details that have been talked about here in terms of adding more interest to it, pushing the eve out, some of that is reasonable to do. That's not
The one that's gonna be
problem.
tough for you, those first floor windows on the
Is it-
admin building.
It's gonna be,
Without the wood, we're all gonna think they're too skinny, so you're gonna have to figure out what you're doing there.
yeah.
Are they arches? What are they? What happens there to make them interesting?
Well, I was gonna say the bigger one is if you cut this out, like scoop that out.
Yeah,
That's the harder one, because you haven't seen that
that's
yet.
a big change.
It's a big change.
Cause there's a whole indent
We
now that
can
you have to
iterate
decorate.
I mean, because we have,
Yeah.
and we have, so we can iterate around the windows probably quickly. It's the cutout, because you never quite know.
It also really changes your planning up there. It's a very
That's the
narrow
reason.
bay. That's a,
It's a hard,
how deep are those window bays up there?
deeper
The upstairs, second floor windows, how wide are they?
this.
Are they 10 feet?
That's probably a little, just shy of 10 feet.
Yeah, so
Not
if you only have
14.
3 of them, it's 30 feet. That's a really weird
Yeah.
bay.
Yeah.
That's a really tough thing to
So
plan.
that's the hard part, because
Yeah.
it takes more, and then it's shuffling plans
Mhm.
just so that we
Okay,
can.
so when is our when is our next regularly scheduled meeting?
29th, I think, isn't it? It's at the bottom of the agenda.
29 for fire.
It sounds to me like we're asking for impossibilities for the 22nd. I think since it's been notified, people are getting that, I think we have to just say, this is where we currently are, we are working on it.
It's an update.
It's
Yeah,
an update.
Yeah, but I
That's
think
really
people are gonna like it. I had unanimous, I like it at home.
Me too.
Cause they haven't gone through all the angst that we
Right,
went through.
so that's Sharon, and then the 2 little kids.
Smart kids.
Okay, they're smart kids, but they are what age? Okay,
You gotta
You
talk to Max.
cannot-
No, you gotta,
Well,
talk to Max a
my
little.
husband said, this is not Atherton.
He didn't like
it's
it.
not,
He said it's not Atherton.
Right.
That's all he said and walked out of the room.
Oh,
okay?
Well,
And I've had other people go,
if I can, what I'm hearing the architect say, Dee Dee, is they can make a lot of detail changes to this basic,
Massing.
massing.
but Gordon, we've been
Well-
looking at detail
well, but-
changes for the last 4 weeks.
what do you think they should do between now and
Yeah,
the 22nd?
I think the challenge is to get, to change the floor plates on that admin wing in
It's
the
not a
next
detail
2
change,
weeks.
yeah.
Okay, well, okay,
And take a bump out. and
How about
I
if we
have no
just
clue what it's gonna look like.
do an elevation and slap it up there. We'll create something.
Cancel the meeting.
I wouldn't do that. Really?
That's,
Well, it's cancel the meeting and just say it's not ready for public viewing.
Change of date.
Change it for another month, just postpone it for a month.
so we could, cross off the date on our banners and put another date and then send out another mailer. with a change of date on it.
I think the change of date is not gonna, people will go, oh, well, if they're not ready, they're not ready.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But it's better than if the next, if
I agree.
I
I'm
think
not,
that's
I'm not
right.
comfortable
That's
having,
not-
this
it's
meeting,
not ready.
with
I
these
agree.
images.
Good luck, Paul.
Paul and Christine.
Well, it's not my
and-
decision. Hey, I'll do
No,
anything
but
you
you
guys
get
want.
to
it's the
execute
committee's
on this.
decision. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
But I mean, if the committee thinks we should put it off a month, then, you know.
What,
I think
And,
it's a
and that
wiser
we can
move.
effectively notify that it's been postponed.
Let's ask Teresa.
We did effectively know.
See, there she
no,
goes.
it can be done. It can be
We
done.
can effectively notify.
And you can even be there.
Yeah,
This way.
that'd be a double
Yeah.
thing.
Absolutely.
When would we do it?
Yeah.
Pick another
Okay,
day.
look at your calendar.
All right, so
Well, we have to
City
ask
manager?
the architects.
would you like to weigh in on?
We could effectively notify, I totally agree.
How do you feel about
It
it?
might cause a little bit of confusion for some folks, but,
Right.
But that's okay.
That's-
I'd rather do that than.
March 21st.
Pushing it out to March 21st.
when's Easter?
We have positioned it as a,
Easter's the 20th.
here's the design, not
So
as a.
this would be the Monday
here's
before
what
Easter.
we're thinking.
I think that's good.
Monday before Easter is good. It's
Keep
not
the
a-
model the
21st.
same, it's
I think
designed on
that's-
I think
Yeah, we're not ready to unveil this design.
Because the Easter egg hunt is on the 26th.
What day are we talking about?
When they need the banner space for the Easter egg hunt.
Yes.
21st of
Can you
March.
share the map space?
Yes.
Well, we've got a couple of, we have three banners up. One in Alameda, down there.
Right.
Well, they're just starting to be seen.
Those aren't occupied
I
by
haven't
any
even
others.
seen them yet, so
Oh.
I don't know. Well, I'm just saying it's.
Yeah. So what day are we looking at?
Are we talking about
Right
March
now,
21?
we're discussing
March
Monday,
21st.
March 21st.
Okay.
Reschedule.
How does that work for WRNS?
It works for John, it doesn't work for me, and I'll see where it works for Adam. So
Okay.
at least you've got 50% of us in this room.
But the time is a huge help for you guys.
It is if we're talking
Well,
about
there's still a lot of work. If we're gonna really change this, they're still gonna be sprinting to make that day.
sprinting, yeah.
But at
Because
least
you
it then gives the committee the opportunity
Yeah.
to look at that fairly significant change before it goes public, which is what I
This
think
group
you're
could meet on
asking
the
for.
22nd though.
Right.
So then we would have 3 meetings for the 21st.
So
We'd have the
then-
22nd, we'd have
We
the
could meet on the
22nd.
You
We could
mean
meet
Monday
on
the
the
28th for
28th.
the,
Yeah, our regular meeting.
for the community?
It says here February 29th.
29th. Yeah, we should
Yeah.
just meet,
So
we-
we,
on the
we meet
29th.
on the 22nd, the
But George
29th.
is saying, what about March 28th for the community meeting?
I thought it was down for,
They can't do anything by the 26th.
Can we go,
oh, you're saying it's not worth having a week later meeting.
Right.
Is that correct? It's not worth meeting on the 22nd for you guys?
Well, we were just saying that, that it takes a lot of time to get to the color drawings, which has, I think, been helpful for you all to see it in that
Yeah.
light. It will be a race to even just get to a sort of black and white line drawing, so I don't know. It's a little bit a question to you all. Can you see through that? Just, that's not a fair question, but could you, we would probably only get to plan shifts and black and white. As a
Well,
regular-
but Elizabeth, just for a second, the reason that we would push for the 22nd is it would give them 2 weeks to the 22nd, then 2 weeks to March 7th, then 2 weeks to the 21st.
Yeah,
You'd get 2 real meetings before a 2-week turnaround to the public meeting. If we wait to the 29th,
then it's 1 week. in
then
there.
it's 1 week in there somewhere. You
But
just, you
then-
lose.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
so the 22nd, we would just get black and white line drawings.
I'm okay with the.
Yeah, it's a sketch.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep going with this.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
And it's just this elevation. You
So-
don't need
so
to
when you
come
look
back
at-
on the back.
Except I would like to see
I guess if you bump it
our
back.
view
yeah.
of the buildings on the side.
Yeah.
yeah, we will, so you'll have to squint, right, because the
Just blow it out.
layering here
Yeah.
helps you see the void and solid,
Mhm.
right? And we're saying we'll just have to look at it from a massing
I
standpoint.
think we've seen these enough that we can all project what it would look like.
Yeah.
So what about the community meeting, when did that get moved to?
March 21.
We're
So
still
the
talking
the upcoming
21st.
meetings are the 22nd. Let's make sure everybody can make it at the
At
time.
4:30.
With the 28th.
At
you guys-
4:30. And then the next one after that is March 7th, our regular meeting.
So we're not doing the 29th.
No
No.
29th.
I don't think there's a reason to do it.
Okay.
Well, it's such a
March
minor
7th?
change.
March 7th is the next one?
March 7th,
At 4:30.
Leaning toward the 28th.
Uh-huh.
then?
And we're canceling, wait,
Is that what you're saying?
cancel 29th.
I
Very
believe.
clear. I'm trying to think.
Okay,
Sorry.
no
Can you-
meeting on the
can you summarize
29th?
the dates? I can't.
So we meet on the 28th.
Trying to do that.
but it pushes
Keep
up
getting it,
us.
okay.
Pushes
February 22nd, March 7,
I think we'll just keep it.
March 21 is the evening meeting. What time is that?
Sorry, 21st.
It was
right?
set at 6,
Oh,
either
you said
6
March
o'clock or
20th.
5:30.
5:30
to 7.
5:30 to
Either
7.
March 20, right now
So
it's the
they'll,
21st.
you send out whoever sends out the follow-up, will they send this out to everybody in writing?
What is the next
Because
step?
you heard the general
If you
sense of
all like
confusion.
it, then when's the
Okay.
council meeting?
Great. February 29th is canceled for now.
So when's your next council meeting in March?
March 16th.
Oh, so we missed the council
Yeah.
meeting.
We gotta get it right.
Yeah, I
Well,
agree.
But we do a monthly update to the city council, so what goes to the city council for for their next meeting?
Why don't-
This?
I think Pauline was asking for approval of
No, I
schematic,
understand.
so.
Yeah, so you wouldn't be doing it
So
until.
just to update the council, this would be the one, not option 2, with the understanding that there's a great number of changes that have been requested. Is that correct?
For the update to council, it'd be option 1. Right, and they're working on some revisions to it. Some massing and
Right.
detailing.
I have
revisions.
a lot of, I kind
So-
of compiled the notes.
Okay, I'm just trying to think the long view. So I'm looking at you, Paul, because we're gonna come back on the 22nd, have some line drawings that are not colored, but have response to the Fair Oaks elevation and perhaps some of the plaza elevation. Then we're gonna go another round, is my guess, to meet back again on the
7th.
7th of
With
March
the
7th.
prayer that will say, that's perfect,
Eliminating the.
just make those even bigger
Better also-
for the public
The
hearing.
mantra of that's perfect better be something we all start practicing.
So, Dee Dee, do they need, what
So we're
wasn't
going
Atherton about it? Do you have any idea
My
what John was
husband
saying?
looked at it, just said, this is an Atherton, and he said.
Do you know what
I was gonna
would
say,
be
so
more
is the
appropriate?
28th better for you after the 7th?
Size, maybe
You mean
200 for him.
Yeah.
Oh, this is modern? Wow.
If we're meeting March 7th, is it better for you guys to go the 28th?
Yeah,
That'd be
Okay.
3 weeks.
Are you even around?
got it.
Really low key.
Well,
Because it's Easter break. Or spring break or whatever.
I have guests Easter weekend, but I should be
27th is Easter.
Paul, I think that
What do you hope they come back?
after Easter is not a good week because a lot of
People
people
are
will be
away.
gone.
The entrance thing.
Gotcha.
So the
More
21st is
people are here on the 21st.
probably because.
So I've
then-
lost track of who goes away when around
I
Easter.
know.
Some go away before, some go away
Yes,
after.
Right,
but-
they keep changing.
But
Pauline?
Easter's on
This 20th.
27th.
27th,
More like that.
so
Yeah, that's
Monday the 21st.
So you have
That's what we're talking about right now.
your
that- I was just
views,
asking them,
is your
2 weeks
inspiration
after that
is-
March 7th
is
meeting,
going.
is that okay with them? To have everything?
Okay, so
Otherwise, it would have to be in April.
Well, that
Okay,
would be
we leave it
April
on the
3rd,
25th.
4th,
Okay,
which
that's
is the meeting day.
Benito
anyway, right?
Juarez's birthday, just so you know. March 21st. It's a
April 4th is a
very
regular meeting
important
day for us
Mexican
anyway.
tradition. There you go.
I know, but.
That's really pushing it out.
I'm just telling you, we could celebrate it that way.
So the 21st is the week before Easter, so
Yes.
there may be some people gone that week.
That's what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
We're not sure.
So
Be
just-
off in the middle of the, like, from Wednesday every week we're meeting.
Which is
the
the
whole next
23rd.
week
Yeah,
off.
Right.
so I think the
And I don't know
first
when
is
spring
good.
break is.
21st is good.
Winter break ends, well, for some, the 21st, and then the spring break.
Yeah.
Was that Christine?
21st is okay.
Is it?
Yeah,
Menlo's
spring
that
break
next
is
week.
March 25th.
Well, that's when all.
That's when
the
school-
schools
that's
are
when
out,
my mouth
so
goes
I
too.
think everybody-
So that week after, that week of the 28th, there's more
Oh, yeah.
spring break and stuff
Yeah.
then?
Absolutely, the
Okay.
week after is not a good week.
Okay, all right.
So just to go to the long view. So we're gonna come out of this hopefully with approval, moving towards the 21st. Then we get our engineers on board for a number of weeks. Then we need to price. So it pushes us into end of April, I would think. Paul, I don't know, I would think at least.
It's gonna take a couple of weeks for the analysis.
Estimating, right.
So probably to the May
Maybe
CCAC
to the May.
meeting for that, and then the May meeting for council.
So I'm just saying, the group should know that that's moved out, you say it.
What did we do instead?
3 months.
It's not necessarily that part that jumps out, because when you look at this, this is.
I just wanna say it, because
Yeah.
it's important for everyone to know it's elongated even from
Correct.
last year's time, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you have to tell them, because every month is an increase in construction dollars of X amount.
Oh, they want that story again?
Well, I think it's fair, just because that's just part of the,
Yeah.
which is fine,
The market keeps crashing, we're gonna have construction, no problem.
that's true.
Okay, all right, I think we're
Did
ready
you
to,
hear that last
Let's not
part?
go
I just
there.
wanna make sure Steve, you heard that.
that we won't have money, I heard it.
Oh, I didn't say that, but you
I heard that.
That's the bad news. The good news is construction costs will be lower.
Yeah,
right.
it'll be just nothing, because we'll have nothing to pay them. Okay, so we're on to item 5B.
Letters just went out today.
Civic Center Green Building and Sustainable Features.
We'll do the same thing.
Would we do the same thing?
Is it, do you guys have a presentation to make on that?
Real quick question.
Or should we push this to the future?
Let's so let's say we go the 22nd and we go. When would we send those out then for the 21st if we went through the same process?
I think
Because
we
we
have
don't want
to
to.
send it out right away.
No, we don't want to run into the same problem where we have an outdated design on the car.
Right,
Because remember we ran into that problem this time.
right.
We want to avoid that altogether. We want to make sure it's the most updated image possible.
And the other caveat is, Teresa mentioned, the letters for the meeting on the 22nd just went out today.
Yes.
So they'll get them in the mail in the next 2 days.
Oh,
We don't want to follow it up a day later with a change.
Why not?
Date per se, I don't know, how would you proceed?
can't you do like a recall?
Oh, we put the wrong
Can't we
one?
run to the mail?
I was just gonna say,
post
let's let
office
it go
and-
hand and
mug?
dive
Unless
into
we
the
make the meeting March
mailboxes.
22nd, we say, oh, we put the wrong month on.
So maybe they haven't taken them.
We can call them in the morning.
Yeah.
have them.
Bohannon has them? I go down there, knock on their door and say,
Hey, listen, those people can't get our mail around here under a week. It's not doing anything down there. Somebody call your mom.
No, it's not. If you're
Next time, wait to the day after our meeting. Going
So
forward,
now the question
we will have a
remains,
delayed mailing process.
when would we send out the notice for the 21st? And how much lead time do we need to get for those first time out?
We're working hard.
So we're meeting on, what, the March 7th? Is that right?
Chief's had
Chief's had enough.
forced entry, no, he's headed to the post office. Rallies and troops, no, I don't.
If there's any chance they can follow us back on, I think there should be an immediate postcard that goes out and says, change of date.
So, let me ask you a question.
There's always.
All right,
This is all scheduled.
That's very good.
should we give Paul a minute, or should we corral this meeting back to, wrestle it back to the ground?
Well, you know what, we'll just go over all this when we do outreach.
Okay, all right.
It's just.
Are we gonna do the green building and sustainable features tonight, or should we
So
postpone
what
that?
I would suggest
Yeah.
that we table that. What I could do is pass out, why don't I not even do that? You won't even.
Is that okay with schedule? I mean, we clearly have a month delay, right?
Okay, right.
So can we delay this?
Second building.
Okay, so we're gonna delay that, we're gonna delay that. We're tabling that, okay. Well, outreach he's talking about, because it has to do with this next meeting. So, library ad hoc committee, is there no report? No report, thank you. Outreach, Paul.
Thank you. All right. Scrap everything you got on this. So March 21st is what we're looking at. So what we're,
Barbara's here and she's gonna write the almanac article, so we can use that as a, P.S. folks, pay attention, the date's changing, as a
This is
start.
the power of the press
You got
right
it.
here.
She'll help us.
You want me to write something that says that the date changed, I can do that.
Yeah, March 21st. Great, we hope.
Pay no attention to the mailing region.
Well, I'm really
Still
hoping
think having
someone
it
can
March
go break
22nd.
Well, we have everything ready, we just have to change all the dates. Just ship the whole schedule.
Okay, let's go do that.
What's
Excuse
that?
us, we're gonna go break into the post office.
Or somebody just go down there
Isn't that one
5
open
a.m. or
till
6
9?
a.m.
It's open all, yeah.
That might be one of those that's open later, like
Three
this time.
flashlights and.
So
Okay,
the
Paul,
problem we ran into with the mailer this time around was we had an outdated image on the mailer. So we had the very first
Yeah.
iteration of option 1, I believe, on there.
Yeah.
And now we're running into the same problem from a spacing standpoint. If we meet February 22nd and March 7th, it's gonna be too late to put the most recent image on the mailer advertising the meeting March 21st.
Okay, how about using the image from the back corner?
Yeah,
Because we've all pretty much, let's
That's
use.
the most consistent one.
Yes,
Yeah.
let's
And
use
so
that.
use that and maybe the site plan, something like that?
And-
No.
and
Is it
just-
library?
I wouldn't use
no,
it.
no, just beauty,
Okay.
no beast.
Just use the
Just
back
beauty.
image and.
The library.
The library image
To be,
is
Okay.
yeah, the
so
library
pretty.
Alright.
image.
Yeah,
Okay.
just the library,
image
that's a
with
good
those,
idea.
you know, ethereal people and the guy's
Oh,
smoking
yeah.
his
Yeah,
pipe.
you're right. Ethereal. People around here are pretty ethereal.
With the
All
dog.
right, anything else?
He has a dog.
And he has a dog. Oh, it's
Anything
a
else,
little
Paul?
Scotty.
No, that's it.
Good, okay. Budget, nothing, no report. Project management, no report. Green Building Ad Hoc Committee, any report? Rose, no report. Excellent. Schedule, we're a month behind. Okay, 7B. So, just to reiterate, we are meeting on the 22nd at 4:30, not at 5:30. And we're meeting here, not somewhere else.
Right.
We are not meeting
No
on the
wine, no
29th.
hors d'oeuvres.
Nothing.
We are meeting on the 7th here at 4:30, and then we will have a public meeting on the 21st, well, they're all public, but the big outreach on the March 21st at 5:30, somewhere to be determined. Is that Hobart Palmer?
Yeah, that's
Okay, the
pavilion.
pavilion, all right. That's it. Do I have a motion? Any committee and staff member comments?
None other than Gordon and I did have a meeting today via phone with the SFPC folks. And we're talking about the water line issues and moving of the water line and geotech too, so
Okay.
that's still moving.
I think that's it. Do you have a motion to
Move to
adjourn?
adjourn.
Thank you, Dee Dee. A second. Thank you.
Second, third.